African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
The morning is bright and beautiful and we are on the search for the roaring lion. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
You are live. Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. My name is Jamie and this morning Fergus is on camera with me. So far Fergus has dropped his coffee once in the back of the vehicle. Hello. And there was almost a second time a moment ago. As we started the safari, it was touch and go. Absolutely believe everything Jamie says. That is absolutely true. That is entirely what happened. We're coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. So a place famous for its amazing wildlife. And of course, those of you who've been watching the Djuma Dam camera will know the lions have been calling all morning. They woke me up at around about 4:45, and I sat outside and listened. Now we've got to try and find them, see where they are. Nothing like having your morning cup of tea whilst listening to lions roaring all around you. I think James has a very similar plan as well. Because this is a live safari, it means that you can send through your questions. I'm going up onto the bank here, Ferg. Now don't spill your coffee, alright? Because this is a live safari, it means that you can send through your questions. I embarrassed myself because those are my footprints I'm looking at. You can send them through on #SafariLive on Twitter. And we would love to hear from you. Send through your questions, send through your comments, send through all the encouragement Fergus needs this morning after his start to the morning. No crying over spilled coffee, Ferg. Dry those tears. It'll be okay. Alright, we're on the vehicle. There's lion tracks going this way. We're on the search for the lions. Let's go over to Tristan, who might find them, on foot.
Well, good morning everybody and welcome to our Sunrise Safari. We most definitely will try our very best to help out and see what we can find. It seems like there was quite a lot of activity last night with all the lions and even a leopard that was around. Now, my name is Tristan. On camera today I've got Craig, the Batman, and Rexon with us as our security detail. And it is a fine morning for a walk. It is a little bit windy, which will make life a little bit more difficult, so we're going to have to stay clear of very dense, thick vegetation. But it is a nice temperature. It's not too cold this morning, and so really good for a morning walk. And there's lots and lots and lots of potential this morning with all the different animals that were calling last night. As Jamie said, lions were calling. There was also a leopard calling earlier in the night, and we already found his tracks, which it looks like possibly Tingana, which amazes me because yesterday I left him going in a northwesterly direction into Simambili. So the fact that he's already back this side is quite amazing. So we'll definitely look out for where his tracks go as well. And other than that, it's the general ongoings on quarantine at the moment. We've got our impalas chasing one another. There's a young male chasing a female, which is not going to be able to mate with those females. Maybe he's just watched the older males and thinks that's what needs to be done. And then we've got a whole group of wildebeest stretching out that's busy alarm calling at us. Now, what's interesting about it is that these wildebeest generally are very relaxed and you can walk quite close to them and they don't alarm call. Yet this morning they're alarm calling. You hear them making that snorting sound? Now, the reason why they're doing that is probably because they've heard lions calling not so long ago. So the lions were roaring not even about, I'd say about half an hour ago, and so they've made quite a bit of noise as we've walked along. I'm sure the disturbance of that call has made them a little bit more on edge, which is a little interesting. Now, I'm not sure if anybody actually managed to see the leopard on the dam cam last night, because I saw the leopard tracks are going down towards the dam itself or to the nest cam. But if you did, #SafariLive, let us know and what time you saw it. And other than that, if you're a new viewer or a regular viewer and you want to ask any questions, you remember you can do it on #SafariLive as well on Twitter. Right, we're going to carry on, see if we can't give Jamie a hand with these lion tracks and see if we can't help her out. While we do that, let's go across to James Henry so he can say good morning.
Good morning, hello, how are you? I hope you're all very well indeed. My name is James Henry and Sebastian is on camera. That's his fingers there, more than the thumb of course. And hashtag Safari Live is how you can get hold of us today. That is on Twitter of course. That's the best way to get hold of us. Hashtag Safari Live. You can ask us any questions, send us any comments. It would be very good to hear from you. Can you see that Impala or is there the tree in the way? You can. We're just going to stop here and have a little look at that Impala. It's the best Impala view I've ever created. The reason of course is not just because we like Impala, which we do of course. The point is to listen a little bit and see if we can't hear the last call of the lion as the day starts to build, or perhaps the alarm calling snort or bark of a kudu or Impala or Wildebeest as they see the lions walking across somewhere. We're on the northern boundary. We're attempting to follow up on the Nkahuma Pride, who we spent much time with yesterday. They were lost somewhere still on Djuma yesterday evening, so whether or not they will still be here we don't know. We hope that they will, and so I'm on the northern boundary to see if I can't find some tracks. Then in front of us there is a very sort of ominous scene of scudding clouds. Oh, there's an elephant as well. Let's hold the thought with the scudding clouds and go to the elephant, I feel. Oh, there are lots of elephants, a great bevy of them. The trick here, of course, is not to miss the tracks of the lions going hither and yon. There's a very large herd of elephants moving down. What did she say? I don't have a lapel. Hang on. Seems to be some problem with the audio. Can you go again? What about it? Ah, lots of wind noise. Sorry about that. That should solve the problem there. There are the elephants moving down Mvubu Road. Just a small herd. I thought it was more than that, but that's okay. We'll take a small herd. Is it the half-trunk herd? I think it might be the half-trunk herd. Fortunately, this road is quite possibly the worst on Djuma, so driving fast without giving you seasickness is nigh on impossible. And there they are. It is indeed the half-trunk herd. I'll stop here so that you can see them crossing the road. There we go. Beautiful. Moving down into the block where the lions were yesterday. I don't imagine there would be any threat from the Nkahuma Pride to these elephants, but they will certainly indicate to us if they see or hear or smell the lions by shouting. That's the second youngest member of the 4 members of the half-trunk herd. There's the youngest and the second oldest, and the matriarch with a slightly chopped off trunk is now coming across the road. There she is. And you can see she's been drinking, I think, out of the little water hole just to the north of the boundary. See that from her wet trunk. I think we'll probably just carry on down the road with them actually. I don't want to drive blasting in next to them, but there's a game path there and I think it'll probably pop out on this road here. There we are. You'll see them pop out here. Very nice. Sorry, I'm just listening to the game drive radio to hear what's going on. Right, I'm ready, Louise, for Salbabi's question. Bobby, you say, do elephants have knees? They do indeed. All animals have knees, Bobby. Yes, well, not all animals, but all mammals have knees in one way or another. That joint occurs completely on all animals or mammals. There is the knee. You can see on the back leg. That's it there. That knee, that joint that's bending forward. That is the knee joint. Now, or the equivalent of the knee joint, where the tibia joins the femur. Is that correct? Yes, the tibia and fibula join the femur. That's correct, I think. And so that would be the same as where your thigh joins onto your shin, if you like, and that knee joint is the same there. Then on the front leg, what's really nicely in picture there is the elbow joint. So that would be the equivalent of your elbow that you can see there. And on the front, it looks like there's a knee, but strictly speaking, it wouldn't be described as the knee. On the front leg, that would be the equivalent of your wrist joint. That's where the carpals are. That is the equivalent of the wrist joint. And so when we talk about knees, we must normally talk about the hind leg. And I don't know if you, Bobby, have got a dog or a cat, or how pliable they are and amenable to being examined anatomically, but perhaps you would like to grab your dog or cat, try not to get bitten or scratched, and just have a feel around the back leg. And where the back leg, just below where the back leg joins the trunk, where it just feels like it shouldn't be there, but that's where the knee joint is. And then where the back leg of your dog or your cat bends backwards in what looks like a sort of reverse facing knee joint, that's the equivalent of your ankle joint. So yes, they do have knees, absolutely. I'm just wondering, I'm not sure that I'm going to go bashing in here after these elephants. It is very thick in there. So we'll just see if we can't get one last view, and then I think I'm going to leave them. I think they will eventually pop out at the dam, and so I think we will probably leave them now. It just is so thick in there. And they're very pleasant and sort of unharassed at the moment, so I don't want to create or change that situation. There are the scudding clouds, scudding off to the south of the reserve, and chasing of lions is Jamie Patterson.
Alright, so the search for lions continues. Sorry, I'm just concentrating on this bumpy bit. The search for the lions continues, and I'm racing towards the southern boundary because I'm a little bit concerned that they're going to have crossed at some point earlier this morning. It's just Franklin's calling. It's a bit confusing. There's tracks going up and down from Treehouse Dam. Let's see what we've got here. They've loved this particular area recently. This is where we walked the male lion Nhenha not so long ago. And it's where the mating pair of lions disappeared the other day. So they've really been enjoying this particular area. Now, where are they? I think it's hard to tell at this time, at sort of in the morning in the cold. I think one of those lions that was calling was a female, and that would fit because I found lioness tracks over there. So I had male lion tracks and female lion tracks, and they've both disappeared. Both of them walked in this direction, and then both of them have vanished. And all I'm left with is hyena tracks. Is that a hyena track? No, it's not. It's a kudu. two kudus stepping on top of each other. Alright, we're going to find these lions, I hope. Let's go across to Tristan, who's found his first animal for the morning.
Well, I hope you find those lions, Jamie, and, well, we've already seen our wildebeest earlier, but they've been a bit mesmerizing this morning. As we were kind of continuing on our way to try and go and help Jamie, we decided just to stop and watch the wildebeest, and they've been having such a good time this morning. The young ones are playing with one another, they're trying to sort of wrestle and butt heads, and there's lots of pushing and shoving. Some of the females are getting involved and chasing the young ones around, so it's been so good to watch them, and I can't believe how relaxed they've actually become in the sort of months that they've, well, in the last month or so that they've been here. Slowly but surely they're getting more and more used to our presence. I'm currently standing, I would say, no more than 60 meters from where they are, which for a wildebeest is very, very close. And the fact that they really don't care too much about me, they are watching a little bit, and every now and then they let out an alarm call sort of towards us, as if to say that, you know, we know that you're there. But other than that, they're drifting quite close. You can see the bunch on my left hand side, they've come a lot closer, and they've been sort of milling around us, and like I said, there's been chasing and games been going on. It really is quite amazing to watch, and it's such a nice way to start the day. It is very, 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 very special indeed. And you can see the young ones, they'll go onto their front legs at times, there we go, and that's all just part of playing, and they'll sort of challenge each other like that. And when they get a little bit older and they get to big dominant males, that's actually how they fight a lot of the time. For some reason, a wildebeest likes to get much lower and get down onto its front knees, and they will then lock horns like that and push each other around. So even as big old males, that's how they will sort of settle disputes, is by doing that. And so these young ones, it's all just practicing and honing that technique for when they get a little bit older, and they do indeed have to fight for territory. And you can see, because they're quite sort of active this morning and moving around quite a bit, there's a number of birds that are in amongst the feet of the wildebeest, and those are all there trying to get all the insects that these wildebeest are disturbing while they're running around. But isn't this cool? You can see every now and then there's a female that will join in the game, and they chase each other around. So, Riti, you're wondering if wildebeest use their horns only to fight. Well, Riti, they might try in a desperate situation, in a struggle with a predator, to use their horns to try and defend themselves. So I have seen when something like a wild dog comes in and they corner these wildebeest, then you'll find that they'll use their horns for defense. But more than anything else, it's to try and establish dominance, and to try and then fight with one another and make sure that they get a hierarchy forming in terms of the males being the dominant in this particular area. It's a little bit different in Kenya, where Brent is. The Masai Mara, because of the sheer number of them that filter in there during the next few months, they can't afford to have the same system as what we have here, where we've got a territorial male and his harem of females. There's just too many wildebeest there, and so then you'll find that they just fight as a female comes into heat, and the strongest male will then mate with that female. But they're not territorial like what we see here. But I have seen, interestingly enough, when wild dogs chased a sort of group of wildebeest on Elephant Plains the one time, and the dogs sort of circled round this herd of wildebeest, and there was one male and lots of babies, and it was around the time when the young ones were born. And so the dogs were trying to get after the babies, and what they try to do is they try kind of run in, and one dog will run in, another dog run in, and they try and split the herd and cause this panic so that they break and run, and they can then grab one of those little ones, because once the herd is running, it's much easier for the dogs to grab that little one and put it down. But the wildebeest were very clever and well organized. They just got into a tight bunch. All the young ones went into the middle, much like what you see with the elephant herds, and then the sort of adults on the edges, and the big dominant male, so like our man on the top there, he's on the sort of back left, which is still watching out for his herd and making sure that they're all okay. He came forward and he started chasing those wild dogs, and he eventually actually caught up with one of the dogs, and he used those horns to flick the dog into the air and try and maim it, and the dog actually had a big gaping wound on it. It did heal from it, and the dog survived, but it was just amazing to see how defensive these wildebeest can be when they want to be. But it's such a cool thing to spend time with. We don't often spend time with animals like this on foot, and so you kind of lose that sort of impressiveness about them, and so spending a little bit of time and sort of blending in with them is actually quite fun, and it's interesting just to watch their little dynamics amongst them as they move around in the early mornings. Now Skip, who's 12 years old, all the way from Texas, you're wondering how their horns start to bend because they start off straight? Well, Skip, basically what happens is as the horn gets longer, so it then just starts to form like that. It's just one of nature's mysteries. We don't know exactly why it happens like that. There is no sort of hard rule that says that's why it forms that way. It's the same as the kudu's horn and the Nhenha's horns that twist. It's just the way that nature has designed them, and so we don't really know for sure why it happens or how it happens, but it just, as they get older, it just starts to drop down and then it forms that curl. It's much like the buffalo as well. When they're born, the buffalo's horn is also straight, but by the time it gets older, it has those big sort of curves in it, and so it's just nature's way. Unfortunately, there's some things out here that we just won't ever understand or know exactly why they do that. It's probably to do with some way that when they establish dominance, that they lock horns and their head position. That just helps to protect the skull as well as to get as much grip as possible when they're trying to fight one another. But there's, like I say, some things out here that we just don't know and probably will never know. It's just the way nature's designed them. Right, I think we're going to leave our wildebeest herd because it seems like they've settled right down now. They seem to have kind of gone into a little bit more of a lull. You can see they're starting to feed now, which means that they have completely accepted our presence, which is great. The point of these exercises of spending quite a lot of time around the herd is to get them more and more and more relaxed with our presence, and that when we do come through here, that we don't disturb them and cause them to alarm call and panic like they have been a bit this morning. Right, onward and forward, because we need to go and help Jamie. And speaking of Jamie, let's go see how she's doing and whether or not she's got more tracks or she's had any success.
I've got something to show you. I don't know if I'd call it a success. I'm also really uncomfortable under this power line. I know. Phew. Looks like it. Where have they come from? Yo. Sure, it's probably them. Yo. Okay. Alright, cheers guys, have fun. Touch rugby, Fergus. Sean is telling you to go play touch rugby. Okay. Sean and I are waving our arms and gesticulating at each other furiously because of this. Hold on. How do I even begin to show you this? Oh my goodness, there's cubs, there's leopards, there's lions, there's... Oh my goodness, hold on a second. This must be sticks. Must be. Surely. If James has got... Okay. Okay, here we go. So, apart from the ones that have been driven over, that's fine, that's inevitable. This power line is freaking me out. It's making the weirdest sounds. Let's do this quickly. Male lion, female lion. I'd love to show you the difference in size, but I'm starting to get nervous, like this power line's gonna break. I know they just redid it. It's making me terrified. These are definitely male lion tracks, just judging by the size of them. Yeah, there's nothing else out here with a paw print that big. Then there's the tracks of the females walking along here, along with the cubs. And that's what Sean was saying, because he said they've walked all over Arathusa, and then they've come all the way back along here. And I'm just trying to make sense of this. Apparently the tracks are already out on the southern part of Chitwa. And I think somewhere thrown into this confusing mixture of lions and leopards, lions and cubs, is a leopard track going in there. And I think that's probably Tundi. I'm out of here. Sorry, normally I would show you in great detail the tracks, but once upon a time, long ago, Brian and myself were sitting with mating lions underneath the power line, and it surged. I don't know what it was, but the entire power line wobbled, and my entire right arm went numb. And we are a sort of, you know, there's quite a lot of electronical equipment. Electronical? That's not a word. Electronic equipment on this vehicle. That's making me scared. Let's get out of here. Woo. Let's go somewhere safe. Let's follow Sean. laughing. I'm sorry, Mama Perks. You raise a good point. Mama Perks would like to know, what do yo and sho mean? They mean, wow, goodness gracious. I am shocked and surprised. I am overwhelmed. They have many different usages. And it's very South African. Sure? Really? Yo? Sure, and yo, these lions have walked far. Let's go across to James, who speaks much better English than I do.
Yo. That is the expression that you will hear when something outlandish has happened in these rural areas. You get you get the hand covers the mouth. You go yo. It's wonderful. When you Did you hear that Billy has had an affair with Sarah? Yo. Aye. The mosquitoes are bad this year, hey? Yo. Aye. Anyway, let's stop with that nonsense. We have got tracks of the... No, I haven't seen you since I saw them. Tracks of the lions went north into Buffelshoek, naturally. I don't think the youngsters went with them, so the adults might come back and see if they can find the youngsters a little bit later. But I don't have any tracks of the youngsters, and to go blundering into that block aimlessly would be a mistake, I think, from a vehicle point of view. As one of you pointed out yesterday, as Jamie was driving along in this vehicle, you'll see as I straighten the car here that the wheel is in fact listing or turning heavily to port. It is not in fact straight anymore. That is from off-road driving, which is inevitable. Bending steering rods is inevitable as well. I have done it more times than I've had hot breakfasts. And so I'm not going to go and have a repeat of that now. Tingana's tracks are on the Buffelshoek cut line with Taxon going east. We're going to go to Buffelshoek Dam and then head south from there and see what we can find along that route. Oh, and now those tracks are heading south on Cheetah cut line. There was a young male leopard found on Torchwood yesterday that I can only assume was Hosanna, and so it will be a good idea to go down this area. In fact, now that Taxon has just said that the tracks of that leopard are heading south on the Cheetah cut line, I think what we might do is skip the Buffelshoek Dam. Just listening to the radio. Yeah, I think we'll just head down that way. Apparently alarm calling kudus in Buffelshoek. I've no doubt that that is the lions that is causing them enormous consternation. Let's just turn off here, observe this virtual starling while we listen to see if we can't hear our own animals' alarm calling. Look at the sun just starting to catch the sticks there, and how, unless it's in perfect light, this virtual starling looks totally charcoal black. Alrighty, let's continue. That was our second sighting of the day, so best third sighting of the day. First being the crested bobbed. I'm not sure why this hat, not crested bob, but our first being an Impala. I'm not sure why this hat insists on sticking upwards like that. It gives it a slightly clown-like appearance, pixie-like. I suppose it's telling me something. I don't think I'm much like a pixie at all. Jamie Patterson is now hailing me on the radio. Go ahead. From where? Ah, I'm going to check Buffelshoek Dam and then Drakensberg Road. She's just trying to coordinate plans. She's going to go east, which means she'll probably go to Cheetah Plains. Now, the Tingana tracks I've just heard again have now crossed east into Torchwood, so we're not going to worry about that. We're going to go and see what's at Buffelshoek Dam and then head south from there. We might be lucky with something else on the way. The morning is turning into very pretty, golden light, bespattered time. Chris, you were wondering about forests and whether there are any thick forests in this area with thick trees. Not really in this area, the rainfall isn't high enough. You do find on the bigger rivers that you will get something akin to forest, which is just, it's riverine forest basically. Thin bands of very tall, thick trees, and certainly where I used to work on two places. Firstly on the Timbavati River north of us, and then the Sand River to the south of us, there are gorgeous forested areas. And if you look at this very region where we are now going to stop, let me point you sort of down the road. We should have signal here in this car, I think. So we look down there. That's about as forested as it gets in this area. And then if you go to bigger river systems like the Sand River or the Timbavati, which I've just mentioned, you'll find that it gets a little bit thicker than that, and you get enormous jackalberry trees, large-leafed albizias, leadwoods, scotias. What else would you find? Those are the main ones. Some very enormous marula trees as well, and they line the riverbeds. And they, some of the most memorable times of my guiding career have been in such forests. But otherwise, no, we don't get large stands of forest in this area. In South Africa, there are a few forests. Would you just stick the camera into this little bush here? There are a whole lot of little birds there. In South Africa, we get forests. There we go. That looks like a green-backed bleating wood. No, it is not. It is a tawny-flanked prinia. It's very cross about something. Ooh, and a firefinch. Did you all see that firefinch? It's very special. Let's just keep looking there. So I will quickly finish my forest discussion. You get forests up in the mountains of the Drakensberg, all the way down into Natal and down into the Eastern Cape. You get forest also in the northern parts of Natal, quite close to the coast, and the most famous of that being the Ongoya forest, or one of the most famous. And that's a specific kind of forest. Grows on a specific kind of sort of soil type, and those are the major forests of South Africa. But you don't get great swathes of thick trees like you do in the arboreal forests of the north. Not arboreal, the boreal forests of the north, which of course stretch all the way through Canada, Russia, and all the way just into the Arctic Circle. None of those occur here. A really nice tawny flanked prinia sighting, I'd say. Possibly the best ever. Joshua, what a very good question you say, and I had this experience yesterday. You said, how do you tell if an animal is alarming at you or at a predator? It's very difficult. The main way to do it is just to see whether you can see what the animal's looking at as it's alarm calling. Most animals will not alarm call at us unless we are behaving in a predator-like fashion. Seb is doing a fantastic job here. And so what you will find is that something like an impala will only alarm call at us if they suddenly see us coming out of the bush. Wildebeest, yes, they alarm call at everything, so they might. Monkeys are interesting. I was alarm called at by a monkey yesterday. And I don't know, it's the first time that I can remember it happening. And they've certainly conned Herbert once or twice in this area recently. So they've started alarm calling at people around here. But that's not common. Largely animals won't alarm call at us, but when they do, the only way to tell if they are or not is to just look where they're looking. If they're looking at you, then they are. If they're looking at a predator, then they're not. It's a really kind of plaintive noise they're making. We're going to go from this very tiny little bird, only about 2.5 inches long, to a very, very tiny arachnid.
Well, indeed, James, this is a very small arachnid, and it's even smaller because it seems that it's tucked itself up as much as possible. When we first found it, the legs were all out. Now it almost looks tick-like because its legs have all been sort of tucked in together, and I think it's trying to make itself look as small as possible. Now, I'm not 100% sure which spider it is because I can only really see its legs at this stage that are all tucked in. Underneath it, I'm trying to see under the sort of grass what it looks like, but it seems to just be one of the jumping spiders. I think it could be. It's difficult to say. Like I said, I can't really see very nicely, but it definitely is all tucked up. It's obviously not in the mood to be on camera and making a show this morning. It's decided that it's a bed day after all. I suppose it is Saturday morning and we can expect some of the animals to have a little sleep in, but they can see how it's used this grass perfectly to spin its web around. So it's utilizing these long strands to be able to put silk, and this I would imagine is more for egg case. Alright, it's not going to be for something to catch a prey animal. This is far too small for a prey animal to hit it and to be caught, but it is perfect to lay an egg case inside there, because what they can do is they can spin a sort of thickened area around and then the eggs in the middle there, and it's going to be quite difficult for anything to get to them. So you'll often find spiders utilizing this for eggs rather than actually for catching prey items. So it's a clever little spider, well done. Although the only problem is that it's built it right on the edge of the road, which means that there's going to be lots of passing traffic, and so the chance of it actually being hit is a bit of a problem. Not so much from cars only, but things like elephants and hippos, because I've seen hippo tracks already along this road this morning, and even things like zebras. Now, talking about zebras, I found something very, very cool that you're not going to see every single day. Now, we're often, when we're tracking and we're looking for signs of animals, we'll look for the actual markings of the hoof pattern within the soil itself. But sometimes you'll get little things that can help you other than the hoof itself. So if you look here, I've just found this earlier and I brought it with me, but basically what you've got is, you see you've got this smoothened section of mud here and then a raised section at the back here. Now this would have been when it was a little bit wetter and a herd of zebras went to go and have a drink. So Craig, don't laugh at me, it's early in the morning. Craig's laughing because I said elephants and not zebras, but it's where a zebra went to go drink, and this is a little baby zebra's hoof. And what's happened is, when it went to go drink, the zebra hoof is a little bit of a hollow inside, and so as it stood in the mud, that mud is compressed into the hoof itself and then stuck there, and then as it's walked along, so that mud is then dropped. The interesting thing about it though is, actually if you look inside here, you can see it stood on a scrub hair pellet prior to standing in the mud. So the scrub hair pellet was first, then the mud on top of that, and it's all compressed into the hoof, and you can actually see the little back end of the hoof here, and then the rounded front in the front. Very, very cool. Not something you're going to see every single day, and you can kind of decode a little bit of what actually happened with that zebra. Now, we're going to carry on. I don't think we're going to find much luck with these lions, because from what I can hear, they've all crossed south. So we're going to go try and see what other interesting things we can find on the walk. And while we do that, let's go across to James Hendry, who I'm sure has always got something interesting to say.
Indeed, there is something very interesting smelling here. It is the Waterbuck. He is he seems to be smelling now, that very beautiful heart-shaped nose of his. Well done, Seb. And well, he's just enjoying the morning light, I think, much the same as we are. It's very pleasant out here, I must say. And he's sitting in the valley of the river that comes out of the Buffelshoek Dam. And I very much kind of get the feeling that he's doing what we are doing, and that is largely just enjoying the morning. George, you're wondering what the difference between a ruminant and an antelope is. George, they are not mutually exclusive categories of creature at all. A ruminant, George, is a type of digestive system that an animal possesses, and there are many, many animals that are very familiar to you that have that digestive system, the most obvious one being a cow. A cow is a ruminant, and I think just about, well, not all, but many cloven-hooved animals are ruminants. They include all the cows, the goats, the sheep, not the pigs, and then the antelope and the deer, and the bovids and giraffe, and, well, various other animals as well. So antelope is a category of, or is a family of the order of even-toed ungulates. So that's what this is. And so a waterbuck is an antelope and a ruminant, but a giraffe, which is neither an antelope nor is it an ungulate, well, it might be considered an ungulate, it is an ungulate, but it is not an antelope, it is also a ruminant. Does that make sense to you? So a ruminant is just the digestive system that they have. And many animals have got digestive systems like that, including all the deers. That's very artistic, Seb. Including all the deer and all of the antelope and many other creatures, including your farm variety moo cow, which is the example we all learn about at school. Does that make sense? If not, please feel free to fire away with another question. This waterbuck reminds me a little bit of a palace guard standing outside Buckingham Palace to attention. He has now turned his sort of body to us, his totally expressionless face, and no matter what the tourists say or do around him, he stares at us blankly. Deb, you say, is that a piece of his ear missing? Yeah, yes, it would seem to be a piece of his ear missing, Deb. I wonder what happened there. I often think that happens from thorns. When they're running away from things, they get the ear caught on some thorns, and because they're in a blind terror trying to get away from whatever's chasing them, they don't really notice and they just keep going. I think that's probably what that was. I think it's unlikely that it was taken by a predator. And I don't think it's so much a piece of the ear that's missing as a rip. I think it's just a tear. And the bit at the bottom has sort of come away from the bit at the top. I wonder if it hurts anymore. Sergeant Waterbuck, does it hurt anymore? No, sir. That's how you rip your ear. You see, you turn around and you run willy-nilly through the thornfelt. Gail, you want to know if waterbucks are normally in herds? They are normally in herds. Normally the females will form herds, and sometimes the big bulls will form bachelor herds with some youngsters. Normally the youngsters form bachelor herds, and the older ones are often on their own, like that one was there. There he goes. Goodbye. Have a lovely day. Right, we're going to move on from here as the sun comes out, and with it the great chorus of the Cape Turtle Dove fills the valley of the river that flows from Buffelshoek Dam. Louise, I'm not sure how much signal you're going to have through here, so just watch it. And because of that, we're going to head across to Jamie Patterson, who is now on poor noodles.
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm having a marvelous time. I'm driving slowly but surely towards Cheetah Plains. I haven't been there in a while. And what I'm looking at is our collection of lion tracks and wondering why on earth they couldn't just have turned onto Djuma here. It was so close and yet so far, and then they go that way. Oh, 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 oh. What are the chances I'm going to get this on camera? There's a slender mongoose. Worked once. No. That thing is long gone. It's a species of mongoose that we don't often put on camera. Solitary and shy. A little bit larger than the dwarf mongoose, with a much longer tail. But alas, it is gone. Like these lions, onto Little Gowrie. I'm not giving up though, because there's more tracks there. Just go that way next time. I still haven't seen the new Styx cubs. I'm dying to see them. Little bundles of fluff. Oh, these tracks are so beautiful. But I suspect they are already out of our... You never know, they might have gone onto Cheetah Plains. That is far. That's all the way from Arathusa towards Cheetah Plains. That's easily a good 20 kilometers. With the little cubs, marching them around. I'm going to just double check around Chitwa Dam in case they decided to go looking for a meal there. Let's go over to Tristan, who's found something large, I think. Wasn't listening.
Well, I have, Jamie, but it's now disappearing away from us, unfortunately. But it is a very, very big giraffe bull, which is doing an excellent job of hiding. So, Robin, I know you wanted to see Giraffe today. We're going to try and see if we can't get a little bit closer and find this giraffe. You can just see him wandering off there. Now, hopefully what will happen is if I go along this road and just kind of walk generally in his direction, often what giraffe do is they're quite inquisitive animals, so they'll stop and then look at us, and we'll be able to show you nicely our giraffe. But it seems to be the same male that's been hanging around the last few days. By the looks of it from far, it's not easy from this distance to tell if it is him, but it does look like him. He's got quite a nice dark coat, and as that sun is now breaking through the clouds, it's looking really, really nice, particularly on giraffe. They've got that orangey color, and that orange colored coat really works well when the sun comes out. It kind of just makes all those colors become very, very vibrant. So I'm just going to try and see if we can't get around him a little bit and just a little bit closer. So there we can just see his neck sticking out from behind the marula tree there. So they'll do this. You can see as we approach, he starts to get a little bit curious, and that's when they stop, and then they'll watch you. So maybe if we just spend a little bit of time with him and allow him to get used to us, then he should be okay with our presence, and we'll be able to get a lot better view. Now, I know he's a male, just one, because of his size, really. He's a very, very large individual, and the second thing is that he's got very, very thick ossicones on top of his head. A female would have much more narrow ossicones, and there would be a lot more hair on top if it was her. So I'm going to just try and duck in here and see if we can't get a little bit closer. Now, the thing is with giraffe, and even the wildebeest that we walked earlier, it's not as imperative to have wind direction and to have a sort of sense of cover, because these animals, while they are potentially dangerous and they can do a lot of harm to you, they generally are sort of quite wary of people, and they'll move long before you get anywhere near them. The other side of it is a giraffe's eyesight is so good that if you try and hide from them, I've never actually managed to see anybody be able to sneak up and hide from a giraffe. So it's more a case of actually just showing yourself and then just standing there, and it's up to the giraffe whether or not it's comfortable with your presence. But we should get a really nice view from here once we get behind this marula. So if we just, here we go, Craig, if you come this side. And that's very nice right there. Now don't run away now. But there we go. It's just moving off past us, and that's about as good a view of a giraffe as you're going to get from a bushwalk point of view. They generally don't let us get too close, and it's funny to watch giraffe because they'll watch you and they'll watch you and they'll watch you, and then you get to a certain point and they decide, nope, that's close enough, and off they'll go. But I love watching giraffe walk. It's one of my favorite things. Now, I'm not sure if all of you know what the sort of collective noun is for a group of giraffe. There is actually two, and one is for when they're moving and one is for when they are standing. So if you do know, hashtag Safari Live, let's see how many people know the difference between the two and what they're actually called as a collective noun. Now you can see it stopped now in the beautiful light. Thank you, giraffe, that's very kind of you. I was saying that I enjoy when they walk, and the reason why is because they use sort of both their legs on one side of the body to move, and so to be able to counteract that, you'll find that the whole neck moves, and they have this kind of body that seems completely out of sync. So the neck goes to the right while the left legs move, and then shifts to the left when the right legs move, and it all kind of balances it in terms of weight, but it looks so awkward as they do. So I always enjoy watching a giraffe trying to walk away from us. Go. You can see how those legs move. Now, the reason why they do use both legs at the same time is obviously so that they don't kick themselves. Having such long legs is not the best thing when you are walking. It means that you end up, if you had to walk like any of the other antelope species, you would end up in a situation where you would actually kick yourself all the time. So they have a slightly different way of walking. Now, we're going to carry on our path and see if we can't find our giraffe in a little bit more sort of open section. So, Starlight Pan, you're wondering which animals we hide from and which ones we don't when we're on foot. Well, I suppose hide is is a relative term. More like be cautious and try and use cover, and to try and sort of not disturb an animal would be all your dangerous species. So things like elephant, buffalo, lion, leopard, rhino, those are all animals that you're going to try and utilize cover. You're going to try and utilize the wind as much as possible, because those animals, if they do detect you, there is a very real risk that they could be aggressive towards you and that you could get yourself into serious harm. So you have to be a bit careful with those, and that's why we do that. Craig, just be careful with the branches here. So those are animals that we be very careful of. Hippos out of water is another one, and then you've got to be a little bit wary of the other animals that are a little bit more skittish of us. So things like wild dog, cheetah, those animals, they don't really like to see people on foot, and they're generally just going to get up and go, and so you're leaving a negative impact on them. So you try and sort of stay as hidden as possible for those animals, not because of the fact that they're going to attack you, but more for their own benefit, that you don't end up chasing them. Now, I don't know where our giraffe has disappeared. It always amazes me how quickly they can disappear. There we go. So James and Nhenha, you got it spot on. If they are moving, it is a journey of giraffe, and if they are standing still, it is a tower. So that would be the collective nouns for them. I always love collective nouns of animals. They seem to be such interesting ones for all of them. Now, I can just see our giraffe is up ahead here, so we should get a really nice view through this way. I'm quite enjoying walking all of our sort of more plains game like animals. You know, often we get so focused on walking the big sort of dangerous stuff that it's really nice actually to spend a little bit of time with the sort of the antelope species and spend a little bit of time watching them. Now, where did you go? I know you were here. It should be just in front of us somewhere here, Craig. Now, I don't know where it's disappeared to. Ah, there we go. There should be a nice view over the top and nicely out in the open. So there you go, Craig. We've managed to find him again. You can see just watching us from where he is. And this distance that we're at now is that distance where the giraffe will be fairly sort of comfortable and not really worry too much about us. If you had to sort of run towards it, it would then start galloping away. It knows that there's a certain distance that it can escape predation, and so even with lions, they'll walk to a certain distance like this, and then the giraffe will start ambling off. But you can see also those white ears that contrast so heavily against the treed background, and that's why they have them. So when these giraffe are walking around, just so that they can stay in sort of contact with one another, they spot those white ears, much like the black tips of a lion. Right, we're not going to harass our giraffe anymore. We're going to leave him to enjoy his morning sunlight and warming up. And while we do that, I believe James is with a raft or a pod.
I am indeed with a group of hippopotami here at Buffelshoek Dam. Both neither Sebastian or I were vaguely surprised to find these hippo here, were we, Sebastian? No. We had the intuition that the hippo would be here and there would be not much else. Anyway, here they're sitting, and I thought to myself, while I'm waiting to show them to you, why don't I try and find some quite astonishing fact? And I didn't really find an astonishing fact, but to say to you this: hippopotamus that is, are often quoted as being sort of 2,000 kilograms in mass. Now, I have also quoted or told you many times over the last little while that many of the masses of the animals that we give to you are taken from very small sample sizes of sort of 3 or 4 animals, and then sort of extrapolated to the entire population. So when we say that a kudu weighs, or lion in this area weighs somewhere around 180 kilograms, that's normally from a fairly small sample of creatures. Now, in this particular app that I use, there have been 86 males weighed, hippo that is, and far from being 2,500 kilograms, not kilometers, they're actually about 1,500, so 1,500 kilograms. So they are, while I've no doubt that the most gargantuan hippopotamus in the world may have reached 2,500 kilograms, what you will find is that most of them, certainly in the Kruger region, don't exceed 1,500 kilograms. Now, I mean, to the naked eye, that's an almost totally imperceptible difference, but I do think it's quite interesting, because again, if you go and read a sort of off-the-shelf guidebook, you will often read things like they weigh an average of 2,500 kilograms. Now Shah, you're 8 years old and you've asked a very good question, and you've led me on to another discussion, but the first thing I'm going to do is answer your question. And your question is, how do hippopotamus breathe underwater? And the answer, of course, Shah, is that they do not breathe underwater at all. They, much like every single other mammal in the world, must breathe above the water. Now Shah, I don't know if you know about whales or dolphins or those sorts of marine mammals, but even they cannot breathe underwater. They must come up to the surface to breathe, and so they can hold their breath for much longer than you and I can, but they must then come back up to the surface to breathe. The only creatures that can breathe under the water are the amphibians, and that's they can have limited ability to breathe underwater, so that's frogs. And fish. Fish can breathe under the water, of course. Not even turtles are able to breathe under the water. They too must come up to the top and inhale, and if you listen carefully you can see there the hippo every so often opens its nostrils and it goes. Now, I must just clear up some questions that we've been asked by a number of younger viewers of late about whether or not mammals are venomous, or whether or not animals that we're seeing here are venomous. And I have said, and I had a little thing in the back of my mind which has now subsequently been confirmed by a number of our viewers. I had a little suspicion in the back of my mind that I wasn't being entirely truthful when I said that there were no venomous mammals. That is apparently not true. I did have in the back of my mind that platypus might be venomous. Now, platypus, of course, is an Australasian species of egg-laying mammal, and they have got venom glands. I'm not exactly sure where. I think they're on their claws or on their forefeet, somewhere like that. Anyway, they can envenomate, not to the point of death, I don't think, but they can produce venom. And then the other creature that can do it, and I had no idea about this at all, so thank you to James Richard and Judy H and various others for putting me right. Shrews apparently are venomous. Some of them can be venomous. I don't know where their venom glands are or how that works, but I'll attempt to do some research and apologize for casting aspersions on the venomous nature of all mammals. Silly me. That was me beating myself on the head. Hippopotamus are not venomous, however. They are, however, although certainly being bitten by a hippopotamus would not result in any envenomation, it would result in a great deal of pain and discomfort. Right, let us press on from here. A pack of animals, you ask a question that is entirely impossible to answer. You say, if we came here 5 million years from now, would a hippo have become an elephant? And I can't see why it would need to. A hippopotamus, it would not evolve into an elephant. There would be no point in it evolving into an elephant. It has occupied a niche here in the water. This is the only mammal, it occupies this niche, and its niche is a very clever niche, and I like to say niche many times when I discuss niches, so please excuse me for doing that. But the niche is clever because what it does is it allows the hippopotamus to use very, very little energy. By lurking here in the water all day long, they use almost no energy, unlike something of similar size, I say a rhino, and that means that they have to eat less and they have to worry far less about the amount of food that they have to find. And so that is that's the niche into which they've evolved. It also obviously gives them protection and that sort of thing. So the niche that an elephant occupies is completely different. And so 5 million years from now, I don't believe anyone can tell what any of the animal species in this area would look like. I've no doubt they will be very different from what they look like now. But you can for certain say that these would not evolve into elephants. Alright, let's head across to Tristan, who is not at a big waterhole like this. Because he's on foot, he's at a smaller waterhole.
Well, yes, maybe I'm going to be like a hippo and wallow in the mud. No, I don't think that's a good idea at all. But what is interesting about being in this area is that as you walk over this mud, there's just so much life that is coming out, and it's all in the arachnid form. So there are a whole bunch of different spiders and species of spiders that are running around all over the place, and it looks like they're using the cracks in the mud as a place to be able to sort of hide out and be able to spend time in safety. So you find that there's this species with the sort of silverish abdomen that it's got there. So I'm not 100% sure. I think they're wolf spiders, but I could be wrong. And so they're running around all over the place. And then there's another type of species which has got a darker abdomen and not the same. And I had one here somewhere. Oh, here we go, Craig. Here it is. Inside there. So that one doesn't have the sort of silver abdomen back. Oh no, there it goes. It does actually. So they're all the same species of spider, which is interesting. I wonder if it's not one of the wolf spiders carrying their egg sacs with them. It's difficult to say, but you can see, look how many of them are in here. There's one there, there's another one over there. So there's lots and lots of spiders all over the place. And as you kind of stamp your feet on the mud, so more and more and more of them come out. But it must be the best place to be a spider, because you can imagine here it's very difficult for anything to dig them out. And so sometimes what you'll see is you'll see the gymnogenes or the African harrier hawks coming to mud areas like this, and I wonder if they don't actually feed a lot off these guys. I know they do catch the frogs sometimes, but I would imagine that they can even get nutrients from spiders like this. And you can see how well they actually camouflage. It's very, very difficult to see them until you go stamping about and they actually start coming out from underneath your feet. It's quite scary actually to think how many must be living all around us while we're standing here. It's almost like in a nest. Right, I believe James has got something very, very interesting, so let's quickly go across to him.
We had there's a Lavallian's cuckoo. There they are. There's a Lavallian's cuckoo, everybody, with its arrow-marked babbler flock, into which it was born. Now there, you see them there.
Yeah.
The cuckoo thinks it's a babbler. There it is, and it's begging, and it's all around the babblers. The babblers also think that it's a babbler. They've completely accepted it as one of them. It's in that big tree there. So they're all in the big tree there. They're all flying away out of the big tree. Anyway, that's really interesting. So they spend their first years, the Lavallian's cuckoo, they don't go north with their parents. Well, they never meet their parents, of course. And so often they spend their first winter, not all of them, but most of them spend their first winter in the flock of babblers into which they were born. And none of them any the wiser that they don't belong together, which I just think is quite amusing. Now there's a Waterbuck mum there. You will just see her buttocks there. But there's also a youngster, very small one. You see the very tiny one there, just in the grass, Seb? And well, no, that's she's just the little one's in front of that one in the grass. There, just standing up. There we go. Little furry donkey type antelope. And it's interesting that we're not far from where that big bull was. And I'm sure he'll know that these ones are here. Hasn't brushed his hair today, still got bed hair. Like a recalcitrant school child. Some of which used to arrive at their guitar lessons with me, looking dishevelled in the manner of that warthog, or at least Waterbuck. Some of them were like warthogs. George, you want to know why the eyes, nose and mouth are lined with white? There are numerous fangled theories about why this should be necessary and why it's the case. They range from white around the eyes to help reflect light into the eyes because they, you know, when they move through slightly thicker bush, or perhaps where at night time when they have to watch out for their predators, so those white bits there reflect light into the eyes. That's one thought. Another thought is that certainly around the mouth it helps them to see each other when they're in bush like this. You can see the white bits are the most obvious bits, and certainly that's why we think they've got targets around their backsides. But the whiteness around the mouth would just be able, to allow them to see each other very easily through thick bush when they're grazing through the woodland like these ones are. Then I have heard theories about, the bulls size each other up by measuring the distance between the eyes and the mouth. I don't buy those, and I really think they must be nigh on impossible to test. So I would go with ease of seeing. I would go with some kind of signal to the other ones. I suppose reflection of light into the eyes is not a bad one, especially as most of their predators are very good at seeing at night, and their only real predators are hyenas and lions, of course. Very nice picture of a bottom. Alright, let's go back to Tristan. I think I disturbed his story. We'll carry on from here.
Well, James, that must have been very interesting to watch the Levailant's cuckoo. They are quite good at begging, and it's amazing to watch them when they, especially with Aramok babblers, because it's all just a whole bunch of noise that goes on. So I'm very, very jealous of James. It's a great sighting that he had. But our spiders are continuing to run around. You can see now this is a different species. So earlier I thought that I'd seen one that was a little bit darker, and so this is one that is a bit darker. Now I'm not 100% sure what this one is at all, but there literally are spiders everywhere. It feels a bit weird because you walk and there's just this kind of movement all around you. I'd imagine for some people this would be their worst nightmare, to walk around here and just kind of see movement at your feet and know that there's hundreds of spiders running around all over the place. It really is not the most settling of feelings, that's for sure. But it seems like they really do enjoy this area, and you look at how well that animal camouflages in sort of mud like this. It's very, very difficult to see them, and they move very, very quickly, which means that they're at home on the ground like this, and this is obviously a habitat that they thrive in, being able to sort of sit in mud like this. Now Craig, I don't know if you can still see it, but there it goes. It's just here underneath that little piece of mud over there where my finger is. There we go. So you can see how well they actually blend in, and once they go into the mud, it's impossible to see them. If you walk past here, there is no ways that you would ever know that that is a spider there. And I wonder if sometimes we see a lot of these sort of butterflies trapped in the mud and places like this. I wonder if it's not the spiders that have caught a few of them and then have sort of put them in the mud as well, fed on them, and then they dry out in the mud itself. What we have also found is something very, very rare, and something that you're not going to find everywhere in the world. We've found some artwork from some of the native species in this area. So you can see, here we go, this is an old elephant that was done by Herbie himself. So we're at the area where we had a sort of animal making session, and this was an area that we kind of potted about in the mud and tried to do pottery, which was a bit of a failure from some of our parts, but Herbie did a very good job, and you can see his artwork stood the test of time and is still here out in the wild. It's even got its little tail, and here was its trunk. Unfortunately, it's lost its vegetation that it was feeding on. It obviously was hungry and fed on all of that. So that's Herbie's elephant, and then we have Jamie's rhino over here. So it's all happening at the pan itself. There we go, there's Jamie's rhino. So you can see its horns sticking up and its little ears. Now I know Jamie lost a leg somewhere, which was over here. That leg dropped off, and it seems like something has made a home on here. Now I'm trying to actually see what this is. It almost looks spider-like in a way. I don't know actually. No, it's a bird dropping. So you can see actually this is where a bird has used Jamie's rhino as a perch. So there we go, Jamie, you'll be happy to know that your rhino is serving a purpose and many a bird is enjoying it. And these are actually seeds of a fruit that's been consumed and then was defecated onto this particular rhino. And so this would have been something that eats fruit, which would have been maybe a grey go-away bird or something of that sort of ilk. And it's quite a big seed, so I would imagine that's what it's from. And it's actually from a buffalo thorn, now that I can see the coloration there. So that is a buffalo thorn seed. So let's leave them here. You know, we never know. Maybe in 20 years time, if they're still there, somebody will come past and kind of wonder what happened here, and we can leave a legacy. So there you go, Jamie and Herbie. Your rhino and elephant are still making friends and still happy at their pan itself. Right, I think onward and forward. Let's see what else we can go and scrounge about now that we've messed around with pottery and spiders. It seems very odd weather this morning. It kind of can't make up its mind whether it wants to be sunny or cloudy. The kind of clouds come in and then the sun comes out and then it goes back again. It feels very sort of odd weather today. It's not the nicest weather, and there's also the sneaky wind that is blowing, and that's always quite difficult then to find things like elephants and buffalo and those kind of animals. They don't really like a lot of wind, and you'll find they'll go into quite thick, dense areas, which makes it quite tough to find them. So hopefully the sun does decide to come up and we'll be able to then find all of these animals. Right, now I believe Jamie has made the mad dash to the west. Hopefully today is her lucky day and she'll be able to see Shadow and the little one.
Very much. Cool. Enjoy. Right, we have indeed made a mad dash to the west. Sorry about that. It was just saying hello to one of the other guides, Peter from Nkoro. Right, so as you may or may not have realized, we are on standby for Shadow and her cub. Am I too afraid to get my hopes up? Yes. It hasn't worked out so well for me in the last few weeks. I'm going to say weeks because I've been searching for her for ages. So fingers crossed they managed to stay with her. She's gone into a very tricky area, and we shall see. We shall see, we shall see. I have not yet seen Shadow and her... I haven't seen Shadow's cub at all. I haven't seen Shadow in a very long time. So fingers crossed, everybody. That's all I can say. Fingers crossed. Fergus, it'd be nice to see a leopard cub, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would. Fingers are crossed. If she's got the cub with her and she's walking, there's a chance she's taking her to a kill. Okay, now we've just got to bide our time. Oh, sticks, by the way. I spent some more time focusing on tracking down the sticks. They went on to torchwood, which was not what I was expecting at all. And it was a sort of a shades of deja vu, having tracked them around there not so long ago with Sebastian. But they're on torchwood, we think. They did a lot of moving up and down. They did cover an enormous distance last night. Obviously they're searching as hard as we are for animals, just for different reasons. Sir Paul, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Sir Paul, sorry, I think you're asking, I don't know why I'm struggling to hear today, but I think you're asking about what kind of prey we see killed most by animals.
What time of year?
What time of year? Ah, what time of year? There we go. Fergus can hear at least. It's because I've got the other radio going at the same time, and as you can imagine, exciting sighting, lots of talking. What time of year? Winter. We see the most kills, and the reason behind that is there's less water available, there's less groundwater available, so the animals are concentrated around water holes, plus we can see a lot further, plus it's a lot easier for us to track, and that all comes together to result in a greater number of kills. And generally speaking, the predators have an easier time of things in the dry season because the animals are forced into areas. And I mean, when we had the drought last year, 3 in a row pan on Cheetah Plains. It was where buffalo came to die because they had to go there to drink, and the Birmingham boys just set up camp there, and every time the buffalo came to drink they whacked 1 or 2 or 3 at the same time and then just waited for the next lot to arrive. So definitely winter time. We were watching the Nkuhumas. We didn't always see them catch the buffalo, but we were watching the Nkuhumas feed off a different buffalo every couple of days during the drought. Now, absolutely the dry season. The same applies for leopard and even wild dog. Although wild dog will probably be equally successful whenever, at any time of the year, it's that much easier to follow them for us as well, because it's not as difficult to drive off-road. Now at the moment, even now, the grass is so long that we have to go quite slowly at times, otherwise we're going to break the vehicles. James has already pointed out this bent steering bar on Rusty that may or may not have been my fault. It's somewhere between me and Tristan. as to which of us did that. I'm not sure. It is an exciting time of year for a couple of reasons. Another one is that our raptor species are coming into their breeding season, and James has found a loving couple.
I have, yes. A loving couple of homemaking African hawk eagles. There they are. And you can see the one in the nest there. I don't know if she's feeding. Or it could be the he. Of course the female normally slightly larger than the male in the eagles. As Jamie says, yes, there does seem to be some breeding going on now. And I'm just checking when exactly this normally happens. Yeah, you see there, April to August. Oh, that's interesting. So April to August, one replacement clutch in September. So if this doesn't, that's very interesting. So if this clutch that they're laying here doesn't succeed, they'll try again in September. Isn't that interesting? Now, we chatted about this. I remember talking about this last year actually, when we spoke about vultures and the whiteback vultures and their breeding around about this time of the year, or into the winter. And it would seem to be a strange time to breed for the winter, but much the same as wild dogs breed in the winter. The reason is, of course, that things are much easier to catch. It's much easier to catch francolins and guinea fowl and small mammals when the bush starts to thin out, when the trees fall off the leaves and the grass starts to die back. So it is much easier to find things to kill and feed to your babies. The opposite is true if you're not a carnivore. So if you're eating seeds and leaves and that sort of thing, and you're having to make sufficient food for you and your family, well then summer makes much more sense. Also, you can hide a bit more easily. But if you're an apex predator of the air, well, winter time is a very good time to be breeding out here. I'm just reading about how many eggs laid. Yeah, normally 1 to 2 eggs. And the male does some. It's quite nice. The male does, he makes some effort with the incubation. Only 7% of the time he will do the he will do that much incubation. Andy and Julia, you're wondering about why there is such variation amongst the birds when there aren't, say, amongst the cats. Is that correct? I think you've got it slightly mixed up in some ways and not in others. So when you say, compared with, say, the big cats, why are there so many more birds compared with big cats? There aren't really. There are a huge number of raptor birds, or I mean there are a certain number of raptors, and there are a certain number of big cat species. So I mean, let's take the big cat species of the Panthera genus. There are, I mean, they're the apex predators, of course. There are lions and leopards and tigers and jaguars and what else have we got? Snow leopards, and many of those stretch throughout the world. And some of them just happen speciated into different species. So if we take the leopard, there are something like 9 subspecies of leopard. And they occupy different niches around the world. Now let's go to the raptors. Yes, there are probably more raptors than there are big cat species, but there are certainly not that many more eagles, or true eagles, than there are big cat species, and there certainly are that many more true eagles that live in an environment like this than there are big cat species. So yes, there is a greater variation, but it's not perhaps quite as big as you think it would be. But the question still remains, why is there a greater variation? And the only answer for that is that there is a greater niche separation. It means that there are far more niches to be occupied by the birds. So these birds have a greater variation in diet, they have a greater variation in things that they're able to eat, a greater variation in the strategy that they're able to apply to various parts of the world. Some of them migrate, some of them stay here, some of them are able to eat things as small as termites like the steppe eagle, some of them will focus purely on reptiles and things. What do you think he's doing there? I wonder if there's not a snake or something there. And so that's why you'll find a greater variation amongst the apex predators of the air than you will amongst the apex predators of the ground. There's just a greater niche separation there, a larger number of niches for them to fill. Does that make sense? But it's a really good question, because of course there are 900 bird species out here and probably about 250 mammal species. Now Jamie, you want to know why or how a bird selects its nesting sites. Well, you know, as the old saying goes, position, position, position. I think there's a snake in there. Unless she's gone furniture shopping. It is Saturday morning. She might be furniture shopping there. Let's just keep watching. I can't move the car to make it any clearer, I'm afraid. I don't think. And so, you know, if she is furniture shopping, it's nice to sort of dovetail with the question that we've just been asked. You know, it depends on proximity to convenient shopping malls, depends on proximity to, you know, good neighbours, safe neighbourhood, that sort of thing. You want, of course, a nice collection of restaurants nearby, that sort of thing. I'm obviously being completely facetious, but the main criterion, I imagine, is simply as they are territorial, is simply a tree within the territory that looks like it can hold sufficient sticks on which to build a nest. I suspect there's a huge amount of randomness in where they build. Did you take anything there? No, coming back up to the nest? Yes, it is a snake. No? Is it furniture?
No,
it's furniture. She was furniture shopping. I told you, so that's why this is a very good place for an African hawk eagle to be. That was a giant piece of stick to be putting into an already fairly uncomfortable looking nest. Go ahead, Lex. Go ahead, Lex. I'm just talking to Lex on the radio. Affirmative. What a wonderful, wonderful sighting of African hawk eagles. I hope my answer there to the variation in birds and mammals is satisfactory. If it's not, please let me know and we can chat again about it. It is an interesting one. So as I was saying, about I think there are there are just under 1,000 bird species in South Africa. And there are, let me just tell you how many mammal species there are in southern Africa. 359 mammal species. I mean, it's almost 3 times the variation. I remember about probably a third of those birds, if not more, maybe about 40% of the birds on that list will migrate out of this area. Mammals, of course, do not have that luxury, so that immediately is a whole suite of niches that the birds are able to occupy that the mammals cannot, because they can do that strange thing called fly. He's going off perhaps to have a spa day now, somewhere far away. She's headed down towards the Chitwa Dam. Oh, there's a husband going to. No, I think they've decided they've done enough shopping today and they're now going to go and have some couples time. Perhaps they'll go to a restaurant nearby. Some guinea fowl stew, which of course to anything other than an African hawk eagle is completely inedible. Alrighty, Jamie has issued the delights of the Singapore noodle stand and is now waiting at the McDonald's.
I am sitting at Red Dam where absolutely everything is flown away. is really quite sad. Even the three-banded plover doesn't want to be on camera. We had the blacksmith lapwings making such a fierce noise. We had a dove drinking. I mean, it was all action here. And then as soon as James sent you across to us, it was no more. All right. Fergus dared me to smack this next segment with Brent Leo Smith levels of enthusiasm, as if he were looking at wild dogs, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Especially when the last bird flew away. That was just the final straw. Okay, we'll go off and search. We're still waiting for Shadow. That's going to be the story of the next hour or so, because I can't drive too far away, otherwise I can't hear where she's gone or where we are up to in the queue. So we're going to be doing loops and loops and loops around the different areas close to that sighting, but not at Shadow. Lou, just to warn you, I'm really struggling to hear you this morning. I don't know why. Your voice is very distorted. Lou doesn't usually speak like a robot. No, I can hear you. Your comms are coming through. You're distorted to the point that you sound like you're talking underwater. Just to let you know. Are you sure you're not in the swimming pool? Are you having a pool party at Inger's and directing the show from there? I think Lou said she's wrapped in a blankie with coffee. Lucky Lou. Lucky Lou. Blankie sounded like land key or something. Okay, so I think I got that bit too. Did you hear which name that was? Jumeirah. Thanks, Fergus. Fergus is on it. Fergus has got your comms perfectly. Jumeirah. Tamira. I apologize. Tamira, how many drives do I have left with you? What is today? What's the date today? What is the day today? Saturday. So I've got this afternoon, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I've got 6 more drives, not counting this one. 6 more joyful drives. Then I go to Johannesburg for 24 hours. I'm going to get there late because I'm going to do morning drive on Tuesday, and it's I've still got stuff in Hoedspruit to do. Then I'm going to drive to Joburg. Then I'm going to see my mum. She's going to take me shopping and hopefully out to eat food that I won't eat in the next few months. And then she's going to buy me some long-sleeved shirts because Brent says that the sun is painfully strong over there. And then I've got an email from Steph saying, please be ready to travel on the 1st, but we don't know if you're going to travel on the 1st. So from there, anything could happen. I'm not entirely sure when I'm leaving. I did offer to sleep on the floor, if necessary. I think there's been a minor delay in beds. Anyway, so that's the story of my departure. Jeandre is in the same boat. Kirsty is devastated because we were meant to be traveling together on the 1st, and now there's no guarantees of such things. Let's go and have a look at some Impala, shall we, while we wait for Shadow? Oh, did it just get colder? Brrr. There's definitely, I noticed this morning there were some serious cirrus clouds moving at a very rapid rate through the sky. Scudding, if you will, through the sky. And I think that is very much a sign of a cold front on its way. Apparently it's 18 and 64, but it's overcast now, which means there's definitely a cold front on its way. Hello, boys. Looking healthy, happy, and jumpy. There's the 2-year-old rams in front, almost thinking about having a small sparring session. I feel a little sorry for them at this age because they face the same effects of the hormones that the fully grown rams do, like the one behind them. But unfortunately for them, their chances of being able to do anything about it are next to nothing. Unless they are very sneaky, they are not strong enough or large enough to compete for the females. So they just have to put up with the effects of the increased testosterone, the increased levels of aggression, and there's nothing they can do until they're around about 4 or so years old. Then they're big enough to take on an adult ram. And they're still the target for aggression from the older rams if they get too close to a harem, because they are capable, they're mature enough to mate. So they get chased every which way they turn. Okay. They're hanging out around this muddy pit because I think there's still some fresh growth around there. There's obviously been some water there. There you go, you can see the cloudy skies coming in. Good morning to Shah, who is one of our 8-year-old viewers. Hello Shah, and welcome back on our live safaris. Shah, you want to know if the impalas are like deer. They are, Shah. They're very, very similar to deer, and they fit in a very similar way to the way that deer fit in to the ecosystem where deer occur. So antelope are kind of like Africa's equivalent to deer. The big difference is, you know how deer can shed their antlers? They have antlers on the top of their heads. Our antelope, our impala, have horns. And the difference is that the horns of the impala are solid bone. So they never drop off unless the impala has broken them somehow. They never drop off. They're made of solid bone that grows from the tops of their heads. And then it's covered, if you tap, look at your fingernail. If you tap on the back of your fingernail, the sort of the wrapping around the horn is made of the same stuff that your fingernails are made of. So that's the big difference between the deer and the antelope. And we only get antelope here. We don't get any deer in this particular part of Africa, in the southern parts of Africa. And mainly you will find deer in places like Europe and in Asia and in the Americas. So we don't get any deer in this particular part of Africa. But that's a good question, because they look like deer, don't they? They look very much like deer. I will never forget the first proper fright I ever had when I was living in the UK. There were muntjac deer living in the garden. And I was walking home in the dark on Halloween and it was misty. And the muntjacs gave me such a fright. And I'd just come out of the game reserve as well. So I turned around and responded in the way that I would respond to a threat coming out of the darkness here, which was to behave quite aggressively and to clap my hands and shout. And these poor muntjacs standing there staring at me. They were not accustomed to such behavior from people walking through the tranquil gardens. It's amazing what instincts stay with you. Very good question, Justin. You want to know? Justin is wondering how many concussions these antelope get within their lifetime. Look, I mean, I think that they're pretty well geared towards the battle of the horns, or the clash of the horns. And most of the time it's their horns that take the impact and not their skulls. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if some of them get concussed every now and again. I mean, I've seen buffalo fight and I wonder how on earth they manage that. Even with the thick bone, thick spongy bone to help absorb the shock of the impact, I don't know how they don't manage to concuss themselves. I mean, the impala skulls are relatively resilient and relatively solid, where they would bash each other. But I think the horns take the brunt of it. And the trick is to keep your opponent from poking you in the eye or something similar. What have you lot seen? Probably other impala at this stage. Yeah, they're just listening to the other impala sounds of the impala rutting. I don't know. Justin, the idea of an impala with concussion is quite... It's sort of pity-inducing, isn't it? Shame, stumbling around with a headache and blown out pupils. And slightly confused. I was going to say, no different to how they're behaving at the moment, regardless. But perhaps not quite walking in a straight line. Giving their heads a bit of a shake and wondering where on earth they are and how they got there. Okay. This bird is simply crying out for attention, Fergus. Let me hope it doesn't fly away. They're whistling so beautifully for us, and I've been ignoring them, and I really shouldn't. Especially because this one is gone. Hold on a minute, I'll get it back again. No, come back! There they all are, sitting there so patiently for us. It's a magpie shrike. Oh, you birds. They were sitting out in the open so beautifully, and now they've gone into this young, very scraggly looking bush willow. There we go. Just wanted to get them on camera because that was a bit of a flop otherwise. Off you go to Tristan with what sounds like poison apple.
Now, sorry about that, we had a slight technical glitch with the audio, but it is indeed a poison apple, so it is one that has grown out, and there's not going to be too many more of these over the rest of the season. This will be one of the sort of last that we see, and it's quite strange to actually see a fruit at this time of the year. As we sort of wind down into winter, there really is very little out here. Now this particular one, as the name suggests, is poisonous and not fit for consumption, so this thing can make you very, 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 very ill, and you'll find that even the animals don't eat it. And Rex and I were just discussing whether or not any of the animals do eat it, because you kind of see the fruit and then within a few days it's gone, so something obviously does consume them, but neither of us are actually sure what it is. Now normally this plant will have a little purple flower on it that's easy to identify, but this is the apple that you can see there, and it gets the name because of these little light specks that it has on it, much like what you see on the green apples that we get. It does actually look a bit more tomato-y to me though. If you see this way that it's attached, it looks tomato-like, but that sort of skin color is where it gets its name from. Right, poison apple, have a nice day. Hopefully it won't poison anybody and nobody will get hurt or injured from that. Like I said, I'm quite interested to know what actually eats them, because if you come in a few days it will be gone. So Violet, you're wondering if we have baobab trees in the area. Violet, no, sorry, I'm just checking something there, which was just a cocoon, or an old one should I say. Violet, we don't have baobab trees in this area. We're a little bit far south for that. You do start to see baobabs in the greater Kruger National Park from a little bit north of where we are currently at the moment. So there is one just between here and Satara. There's the southernmost baobab of the Kruger, and then they start going upwards. Now there are one or two baobabs that you may find at some of the lodges, but none of those are actually there naturally. They've been planted there, which is not ideal, and so there are those kind of situations, but unfortunately not. It's one of my favorite trees, so it would have been nice if we had had lots of sort of groves of baobabs. They get so big, and then with these big sort of crowns that they have, and in summer it's green and foliated, and then in winter it becomes stark and looks like these roots coming out of the top of the tree. It really is very, very cool. But in Kenya, where Brent is, there are quite a few baobabs, not in the Masai Mara, but a little bit to the sort of southeast of where he is. You see a lot of big baobabs there. It's a very beautiful drive from Nairobi to Mombasa, and you see hundreds of them all spread out around. It's really quite impressive. And I actually want to talking about baobabs, I would love to go to Madagascar and go and see those very, very tall baobabs. There's those massive ones that have those long, tall stems, and then go out to the top. They look incredible. So at some stage in life, I'll try and get that side and go see those, because it really does look quite spectacular. That coupled with all the other things about Madagascar that are nice. So many nice species in there. But the sun is just starting to come out now, which is quite nice. I'm hoping that with the sun coming out that we're going to start seeing some of the animals coming out. So it's been quite quiet otherwise. We haven't heard really many sounds. We haven't heard any sort of audio for elephants or anything like that. No alarm calls. So it's been a little bit on the quiet side in terms of following up. Even on the insect side, we've really battled to try and find insects. I've been looking everywhere, and it seems like winter really is taking its grip at this stage. Right, onward and forward we march, see if we can find anything of interest, and while we do that, let's go across to James Hendry and see what he's up to and whether or not he's planning to go shopping this morning.
Not good morning, a bit the sort of slightly British understatement this morning. It is deathly quiet in my opinion. We did have a squirrel alarm going around here, and the last time Seb and I were together and we had squirrels alarm calling, well, we found leopards. So let's just ease our way along here. I was going to go straight across to Cheetah Plains, but Jamie did have tracks of leopardess and possibly tamba not too far from here, so I thought we'll just have a look and see if they haven't poked out, jumped into a tree, hoisting some sort of delicious breakfast meal. One day I will see a leopard in this tree. An enormous torchwood and balanites. But no, the squirrel has its mouth, unfortunately, and therefore I don't think we are going to find. Yeah, just slowly for a few meters. Can you see the hornbill in there, Seb? Well, apparently our signal is dreadful. Sorry about that. Let's head across to. Okay, we're not going to. I think we're going to have to, Lou. We're going to have to move from here. The hornbills have gone, I'm afraid. Let's head across to Jamie. We'll try and find some better signal.
Alrighty, let's go and see if we seem to have fine signal. So let's go see what's happening at Arathusa Dam. Not much at the moment. It is so dry. Shame. Arathusa just didn't get the same amount of rain that we did, which is a great pity. The shadows in here somewhere, still moving as far as I can tell. Hopefully she moves into a nice area. What is there? Oh, it's a herd of Impala. A herd of Impala behind some trees. Enthralling. Have you seen a leopard walk past you any time recently? They look perfectly relaxed. The shadow tends to go for smaller prey, but an impala is would definitely be on her menu, especially now with the males being as distracted as they are. Look at the little one thrashing the tree there with its horns. Oh, it's just stopped now. Just bear with me 1 second. I just need to, now that I can hear more clearly, I just want to listen to the Game Drive channel for a second. Okay. Here we go. Bit of confusion. Seems as though the lost shadow. Okay, I'll keep listening. If they lose shadow, we'll go and look for her. We will try. I'm determined to see this through. Or try to. Okay. On we go. Let's go see what's happening at Arathusa Dam. William, that is something I would love to show you. William's wondering about the jumping skills of the Impala and how high they can jump. They can easily jump, I would say, up to 3 meters upwards. But what's astounding is watching them jump forwards rather than upwards, where they must cover about 5 meters at a time. But what's even more extraordinary is when they do their characteristic, what would I call it, display that is known as stotting. And stotting they do to show either other antelope or even just to show a predator how healthy and fit they are, and therefore it's not even worth bothering trying to chase them. And what they do is they do this amazing forward jump and then they handstand, and it's a proper handstand, and their bottoms go all the way above their back arches and their bottoms go right up above their heads. They're such fragile looking antelope that they look as though they're going to snap in half. And they do this and they bound forward. It's beautiful to watch. It's like they're dancing. And I promise you, if I could jump like that, I would do that all day. Where's Jamie? Oh, she's on quarantine, jumping around like stotting around like a crazy person. And all antelope have different forms of displaying, or stotting. The most characteristic and famous one is the one that's given its own name, which is done by the springbuck. And they pronk, where they arch their backs up and they draw their legs together and they do this, almost in slow motion. It's very, very pretty to watch. Especially in slow motion and when played to a beautiful soundtrack. A lot of the antelope, particularly the larger species, things like hartebeest, they just do a high trot. But I think the impala and springbuck are the ones that are really worth watching. And it's interesting because it's an interesting evolutionary technique, that display, that look how healthy I am. And then if you watch them, as soon as one starts, then the rest go as well. And I am distracted because I'm just trying to find out what is happening with Shadow. So is everybody else though. There's a fair conversation happening. I think if she was coming in this direction, I think we should work our way backwards. And maybe if they have lost her and they've left the area, then maybe, just maybe, we'll get lucky and we'll find her again. It's exactly the same place I was looking for her the other day. Donna, I hope I've understood this correctly. You want to know if we track animals differently, or does tracking animals work differently in cooler weather? They're more likely to move further. That is one big factor that we have to take into account. With lions, you know that there's a good chance they could keep moving rather than settling down and going flat at 6 o'clock in the morning, which they might do in a summer situation. But when it's cool, they could walk all day, especially if they're hungry. They can, like the Nkumas did with Tristan yesterday. So they could. Still listening. So tracking them, the other thing is if we're tracking by sound, in other words, if we're listening to a lion roar or to a leopard call, then we have to assume that the sound is further than it is in summer, because the sound travels further when it's colder. So yes, there are a couple of subtle differences. The nice thing for us in the colder weather is that inevitably means it's drier, which does make tracking easier. The roads are becoming dustier and dustier, and that in turn makes it easier to see where the tracks are fresh, where they're not fresh. It just simplifies the whole process. It's also much easier to see because it hasn't rained as much, so the roads aren't wet. Okay, let's see what's happening at the dam. Oh, there's a heron. And the heron is gone. Alright, well, let's see what else is here. Can we just have a look at those impala again? I can listen to what's happening. There appears to be some confusion. Okay, you want to know what migration patterns change during the winter season. We don't really get massive migration patterns. You will get a movement of animals. Things like buffalo, the bulk grazers, elephants, they will probably actually spend more time with us because there's some permanent water around this area. Permanent pumped water. Whereas in the sort of the other side of Kruger, just sort of next to the Sabi Sand or bordering the Sabi Sand, there's very little permanent water. So it's not really a migration for the mammals, it's just a movement to where there's better resources. So you'll get a lot more clustering around the waterhole, like these poor impala are doing. They want to go and have a drink, but the mud's so thick they don't want to sink right in and get stuck. Now they have to do so quite carefully, shame. You can see those sharp hooves sinking in. Oh, sinking and slipping. And it does happen that the odd impala does get stuck in the mud. Usually it's the young ones that are less experienced. I'm sure this ram will be fine. You can see he's backing out. But it's not all that easy as the water sources start to dry up. Birds, well, actually most of our birds have migrated already. So all of our summer birds have already gone back to various places, whether it's to Europe or into Central Africa. A lot of them have already disappeared. They'll only be back in the summer months. And the insects and the reptiles, of course, don't migrate at all, but they do largely disappear during the dry winter months. You can see how nervous they get when they come down to drink, because they know they can't move as quickly as they might otherwise. I'm going to find out what's happening with Shadow. In the meantime, Tristan has found a dead branch.
Well, we have, Jamie, but that's not why we're looking at it. There is a sign sometimes of things that live around dead branches, and so when you're walking along and you see things like this, and you notice inside here there are these little white rings. Now these white rings are from a millipede. Now millipedes get eaten by a few things. There's very little that actually eats millipedes because of the cyanide content that they have, and when you find sort of dead branches like this close to that, there's always a good sign that there could be a scorpion around. So I'm just busy poking around trying to see if I can't find a scorpion here somewhere. They are big exponents of millipedes and they often feed on them. They also love to get into sort of dead bark like this. So I've just been trying to kind of check underneath the bark and see if there isn't any sign. There's a wing of a butterfly, which is quite pretty. So that would be from an ecria butterfly. There we go. Let's put that in the sun so we can actually see its coloration. Isn't that pretty? Oh, don't blow away. That's gone according to plan. Sorry about that, Craig. So sometimes when you look around these areas, you can find signs of a scorpion or something like that. It might not be here at the moment, but you can see how many sort of rings there are actually down there. So whatever had that snack, I'm sure it lived inside this tree at one point, and it's a good place to come and look. And the thing is though, is during the day like this, it's quite tough to find scorpions. You've got to kind of turn over quite a few branches. They tend to go and hide out. Scorpions like to be a lot more active at night, but sometimes if you're lucky by spotting those rings, you can find them. So I'd imagine somewhere in this area, if I kept rooting about, I would eventually manage to find one. Now it's a bit of a disconcerting thought though, because I'm sitting on a piece of wood, and so hopefully there isn't a scorpion under my backside, because that won't be very pleasant. But what there is at the moment, is a buffalo thorn, which is also not very pleasant. Now this guy, as you can see, he sticks to everything, so this is not something you want to sit on at all. The buffalo thorn is probably one of the worst trees out here when it comes to getting stuck in them. So Lou says she's sat on one once before. Lou, was that a pleasant experience? I doubt it. They are not very nice things at all, and the reason why is because you can see they've got this long straight thorn that does the penetration and does the sort of pain spectrum, and then they've got this little hooked thorn here that helps just hold you back and keep you entangled in this branch. So anytime you put your backside down, make sure that you do not sit on one of these, because it's not going to be a fun experience at all. So let's get that out the way, because that was poking me in the behind. Right, anything else that we can find around our fallen over stump? I don't see anything. I'm trying to see if there isn't a scorpion lurking here. What there is, though, is actually termites. So Craig, if you come this side, that's quite cool. Now that I've lifted up a piece of bark, we've got some termites that are busy working away over here, so we can actually see where they've developed this sort of cast system. They've got, there they are, they're all kind of now going into the ground because I've disturbed this area, unfortunately. There we go, there's one over there, and these are tiny macrotermes. They are very, very, very small. Sorry, microtermes, I apologize. And these guys are actually feeding off this wood at the moment. So if I turn the wood over like that, you can actually see where the sort of soil part was that the termites made, and how they're slowly but surely stripping away pieces of wood. And there's even a termite busy walking around, so you can see they are absolutely minute, and they are coming in and they'll build this sort of crust over the top so that it allows for tunnels for the workers to go up and down to be able to get the food that they need and back into the sort of ground and where the eggs and the queen is, and not have to worry about predators. When they build this sort of crust over the top, it means the predators really can't get to them, so things like birds and those kind of things. What does kind of make an exponent of this will be honey badgers and varying sort of pangolins and aardvarks, and what they do is they come and then they just start to do that, and they break it open a little bit. Now the reason why I'm doing it on this one is because I know there's no termites in this. This is a piece that was sticking up off the ground already, and so there's no termite action walking around here, so I know I don't have to worry too much about this. But there we go. There also seems to be quite a large web there, so hopefully I'm not sitting on a brown recluse as well. I think there's a little bit too much danger around my backside here, so I'm going to decide to move on. I just don't want to be like James in his tent. Right, so we're going to start mobilizing away from things that could potentially envenomate me in areas that I don't want to be envenomated. And while we do that, I believe James is on a Ferrari safari to something furry, and a surprise for all of you.
Yes, I'm Ferrariing away. Look at me Ferrariing. You can call me Sebastian Vettel. Oh, in fact, you can call Sebastian Vettel. Who's the other Ferrari driver? I don't know at the moment. I am currently on my way. I think it is Kimi Räikkönen. Thank you very much. You can call me Kimi. Can you make a strap for Kimi Räikkönen? So it's been very quiet today, as you can tell. We're on our way to Cheetah Plains Pan, where we've been told that there is not a great plethora of envenomating mammals, invertebrates or reptiles, but that there is something there with very sharp teeth, very sharp claws, and it's got a slightly fluffy pom-pom on the end of its tail, and it's got quite a heavy beard and coating of hair around its neck and head region. It's a male. It is a sort of tawny colored creature. It weighs about 150 kilograms plus minus, not an enormous example of this particular creature. It's got 4 toes on the front and 4 toes on the back. It's got 2 nostrils, 1 tongue, 1 pancreas, 1 gallbladder, and then very large liver, 2 kidneys, 1 spleen. Do you know what it is? Can you guess? It is, in fact. I know many of you were thinking that I'm talking about a buffalo, but I'm not. It's a lion we're going to. We're hoping it's a Cheetah Plains pan still. Everyone else has left and gone for breakfast, I think. So we're speeding our way along there. And hopefully the lion will still be there. He was, as they say in game drive, in terms they say, it is a lullapancy, which means it is sleep down, basically. So I was conspiratorially told by a guide who went past me, I said, was there any update from the east? And he said, well, he looked at his guest sort of conspiratorially, then back at me and he said, one Madodangala lullapancy, which means, literally speaking, it means one men lion sleep down. One men lion sleep down. If he'd said that in English, they still wouldn't have had any idea what he was talking about. So we're going to try and find the men lion sleep down. Oh, completely, William. What a wonderful question. You say, after spending so much time with wild animals, do I see human society in a different light? Completely and absolutely. And in fact, I was watching I don't know where it came from. It must have been a Facebook post somewhere of me saying on one of these drives that despite all the time that I've spent out here with wild animals, I have come to the conclusion that human beings are by far the most varied and astounding hodgepodge of different characteristics that there are in the natural world. They are, to my mind, certainly the most fascinating from a psychological point of view. Inexplicable, unpredictable, and while when I came out here I would have thought that the wild was unpredictable, when actually, I mean, if you've got a relatively sufficient understanding of the variables going on out here, well, you can kind of predict an animal's behavior, not completely, obviously. Where are they looking? They're looking over here. Squirrels, everybody. One of them's looking down here. One of them's looking the other way. Something is here. They are going ballistic. So's the Franklin. But unfortunately the Impala nearby are not in the slightest bit distressed. There's a warthog. He's not worried either. Oh, no, here we go. Now we have alarm calling. They're all looking around here. Let's go forward. Maybe it's the lion coming this way. No, those things are deeply distressed. Cheetahs, maybe? The lion's not far from here. Now those squirrels are still going. The lion is apparently just down here. I'm going to go back this way. Just see if we can't see what's making them go so very mad. Impala stopped looking this way, but they did bunch together suddenly. Squirrels are looking straight down into the bush here. Now, as Seb and I discovered, they have got very, very good eyes. They can see quite a long way. There's a very irritated squirrel. Alright, I think we're going to move from here. Simply, yeah, I can hear more birds' alarm calling. Through here. Alright, I'm going to see if we can't find what's caused the problem here. While we do that, Tristan has got a chocho in a hole.
We are not sure what exactly it is, James, but it looks roach-like. So it almost looks like a cockroach of some sort, and it's dug itself this hole, and it keeps kind of turning around and facing forward. There we go. So if we move, then it turns its bum to the air, and otherwise it faces its sort of antenna forward and its eyes forward, and it's just sitting. And I don't know if it's a predatory insect. It doesn't look like it because it doesn't have big mouth parts that I can see. It just seems to be sitting there and watching the world go by. Now I would imagine that it would be quite dangerous for this little creature. We did see some dwarf mongoose not too far from here, just up ahead, running around, and they would love a little roach snack like this. I would imagine they would come and dig that out and grab it. So it's a very sort of interesting creature, and I actually haven't seen one of these before, so I'm not 100% sure what kind it is, but it definitely looks like from that kind of family, the roaches or those sort of bugs. Now, is there anything behind it there? It looks like there's another one coming up from behind. Do you see that, Craig? Or is that an ant? What is that? I don't know. There's something lurking behind the cockroach or the roach itself that I can't see. I just saw some antenna moving. There we go. You see there's a bit of movement behind it? Can we not see? Let's see if we can put some light on that and help out a little bit here, Craig. I don't know what it is. Like I said, I just see antennas kind of coming up from behind. I wonder if there's not another one inside there. It's quite interesting. Just goes to show you, sometimes when you sit for a long period of time with small things, you can be amazed by what is actually going on. We often think that, you know, the big things are the most important part, but actually these smaller objects or smaller creatures have such fascinating lives that sometimes it's good just to sit and watch what's going on. It looked almost ant-like when it was coming up. I wonder if there isn't another one inside there. I want to just try and quickly see if I can't see with the light what is going on in there. But no, I can't see. It's disappeared, whatever it was. Even when I shine the light inside there, it's now no longer visible. Interesting. But the coloration on this particular insect is really quite fascinating as well. It's got this sort of caramel color with these bands across it. It is actually very pretty indeed. It's got this sort of almost like those polished shells that you get. That sort of feel and look to it. Very, very, very cool. So Violet, you say it looks a little bit like a sand crab. Well, Violet, I'm not actually sure what a sand crab looks like, so I'm going to take your word for it, and I'll go and research it a little bit later. I'm almost sure it is part of the roach family, though. Those long antennae that it's got, and just the general sort of shape of the body would tend to suggest that that's what it is. But I'm not 100% sure exactly what a sand crab is, so maybe that is what it is. I know the other day we had an egg case, and somebody very kindly let me know that it was for a ladybug, so maybe you're right. I'll definitely go and sort of do a bit of research and see whether or not it is. But those antennae are very sensory, so it must find food using antennas more than anything else, because the eyes on this particular insect are very small. It doesn't have a massive eye area. It seems that the eyes are quite tiny, but the antennae are very long, so it must spend a large majority of its time underground, where those sensors, those antenna sensors, are going to be able to determine what it's doing and where it's going. Either way, very, very cool to see. And how Craig actually spotted this, I'm not quite sure, because you can see it's on the edge of the road, and we were walking along, and he managed to see it moving in this little hole. Right, Craigie? I think it's time for us to start moving off and to carry on and see what else we can find. Now I'm absolutely covered in Witheria because they've got these sticky little seeds. So while we kind of get going and see if there's anything else that we can find, I did hear some elephants not too far away, so I want to try and just check if they're not coming towards Gallagher Pan. So while we do that, let's go across to Jamie and see if she's resolved the mystery of Shadow on the radio.
Yes, I've solved the mystery of Shadow on the radio. They've lost her somewhere in here, and everybody's disappeared. They're not quite sure. I'm not quite sure exactly where it is that they lost her. It's somewhere in this drainage. So we're going to do loop around. We'll see if we can find her. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we get lucky. It's a very, very difficult area, so it's nobody's fault. The vehicles, especially the longer vehicles, we're actually quite fortunate. You just hit your head on the camera. Fergus just smacked his face on the camera, I'm sorry. He's fine, he didn't do it particularly hard. But as I went over a bump, it whacked him in the face. Sorry. I just looked around at the exact right moment as it whacked him. I'm sorry, Fergus. Here to lighten the mood. I know. The mood needs lightening. I'm so disappointed again. First you spilled your coffee, and you bumped your head on the camera. No, the mood could do with lightening. I'm upset about Shadow. It feels as though I'm doomed when it comes to seeing her and her cub. Every time we try, it just seems as though they vanish. Oh well, Shadow's not called Shadow for nothing. She does work in mysterious ways. I'm going to work on the assumption that this is where she was, judging by the... No, those are old. Never mind. Those are old off-road tracks. Just when it was still raining. Oh, boy. In this direction. I was worried they were going to lose her. Well, we shall try. We shall try, we shall try. The good news is that whilst my Shadow's efforts are unsuccessful again and again, James has managed to find success this morning.
Yes, we have found a male lion who may or may not be alive. As you can see, he is showing a distinct lack of enthusiasm for his Saturday morning, but he is a male lion, and that's good. He's not doing a great deal at the moment. As you can see, he did sit up as we got here, gave us a bit of a look, and then lay down again. And I don't know who he is. I'm not sure which one he is. I'm pretty sure he's not. Who did we have last? He's got a much bigger mane than the lion we had last. Let me just move a little bit around him slightly, give you some variation in the sighting. I'm afraid we failed to find whatever was making those squirrels so upset. I think the fact that the impalas were not particularly interested in alarm calling makes me think that it could have been a snake or something like that. Hello? Which one are you? Would you at least open your eyes, just briefly? Be kind. No, not. Anyway, I suppose what's interesting here is to see how the grass has changed colour and how he is starting to blend in with it quite well. People often ask, well, why are animals certain colours? And I think they're almost always coloured for the winter. In the summer, of course, you can hide behind bushes and in the long grass, but as the winter comes and the vegetation recedes, so you need to be more and more well hidden. And so a lion, big as it is perfectly coloured for the winter grass and winter vegetation. He's also perfectly adapted for sleeping, which he does most of his time. It would be nice of him at least to lie in an area where we didn't have to look at a road junction, you know. You'd think he could put himself at least in a clearing. He could not even extend himself to doing that. Now, you might see also that his belly, which is the hungry-making colour of sort of honeyed custard at the moment, is quite full. Although he's not breathing very hard, it is quite full, and the Birmingham boys, two of them, have been on a buffalo kill in Mala Mala to the south of here. And I think he's probably been snacking on that. You see that? Well, you wouldn't have seen, but it made him open his eyes very slightly when I said buffalo kill. Buffalo kill. Buffalo kill. No, only once. Giraffe kill. Still nothing. Oh, I've just heard on the radio that a buffalo has been killed. No, he's just not interested. Jay, you say that you think this might be Nhenha, the warrior? I think that you are probably correct, Jay. I seem to remember him having the darkest mane. Didn't he have the darkest mane? And this chap's got a nice dark mane. Oh, we have some eye-opening, everybody. Oh, good grief. Hold on to your seats. That's quite a nice picture of sort of evil-shaped eyes. Seb, I think he quite likes you. Now this is where a male lion becomes so very impressive. Yeah, that is Nhenha. He's got the equal sign on his nose. Ah, well done. Thank you very, very much. And Roshni, you say that he has a beautiful mane. He does indeed. Salon quality mane, as I said. Although I don't think he's done a very good job of washing his face, to be honest. He's still got a bit of blood on it. He's picked something up on the wind. See how he keeps turning his head to the wind? No idea what that could be. That's it, turn your head to the sun there. That's a good boy. He's like a model at a shoot now. Beautiful. Yeah, he does look like he's got a bit of a cut on the side of his face, but you know, we see these guys so infrequently these days that it's difficult to know, you know, whether those cuts and bruises and things are new or old, I find. Still, it's very nice having a male lion with us. Oh, he just watched a vulture fly over the top of his head. A white-backed vulture. Perhaps the vulture hoping for a few thermals. In fact, almost certainly hoping for a few thermals. But just getting quite a lot of wind and not much heat today. I'm so glad he took it upon himself to sit up. It was very kind of him. Thank you, Mr. Lion. I don't suppose you want to roar, do you? I know this isn't really your roaring time, but maybe you'd make an exception. It is Saturday Catterday. Ha 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 ha. just see the sun starting to come out now, changing the picture. And I think we're about to have another collapse onto the ground so that he might sleep. Yes, shame. Hey, after all that activity. Right, I think we're probably going to spend another few minutes with this lion and then move on. While we do that, Tristan apparently has got a member of the Orthopteridae that has a crest. Good.
We do, James, we do have a member of that, but this member seems to like buffalo thorns a lot more than Lou's backside likes them. So it's using the buffalo thorn to basically camouflage. And isn't that camouflage amazing? You can see that it's got this sort of grey, mottled appearance, and so this is called a crested grasshopper, or crested locust is actually the correct term for it. And you'll find them often sitting on trees like this, particularly dead trees. So this particular buffalo thorn was pushed over and has died quite a while ago, and so the bark really does help it camouflage incredibly well. And you can see it's quite a big bodied locust, and the reason why it's got that crested name is it's got this sort of protrusion over the top that's over there that just sticks out off the actual head itself. And you see what it tries to do. It tries to position itself in a way that it actually blends in a lot better. So if I'm the predator coming from here, I'm not going to see it very well because it's going around the back of that branch, and it's going to become very difficult to see it. You'll also notice that they have really large back legs. So these guys are excellent jumpers, as are most grasshoppers and locusts in that family. They're able to move really, really well. Now, trying not to disturb him too much because I don't want him to jump away and go off his very well camouflaged branch, but there seems to be something red on it that I'm trying to get a little bit closer to actually see what it is. Sometimes we get these red velvet mites in this area, but I can't see exactly. Craig, I don't know if you can try and just get in on here so that we can try and see what that actually is. It seems to be this sort of red marking. Now I can't see if it's actually a seed or if it's some sort of marking from the grasshopper itself. Now let's have a look. There, close to the back leg, there is, I don't know. It almost looks seed-like. I wonder if it didn't jump past something and a seed. So there we go. So Lou says it looks like a little mite. So it could be. We get the, like I say, we get red velvet mites, and they are quite interesting creatures, and they're very, very pretty with that sort of red coloration. So obviously this is busy feeding off the soft part of the locust. So this underbelly area, the exoskeleton is much softer than on the back side, and that's maybe why that mite has been able to get in there and be able to then start feeding off it. That's very cool indeed. Just goes to show you, grasshoppers also have problems too, and when it comes to actual sort of parasites. And you can also notice how its feet grip on so well. Hold on now, I just heard something alarm call. Now Craig, be careful because you're stuck in the buffalo thorn. So there we go. Not only Lou that has trouble with buffalo thorn, it's myself and Craig too. But there was something that just alarm called here. It sounded like a bushbuck or a nyala. And we are in an area where there's been sort of big steep drainage lines, and we know that Amber Eyes was away from the Nkuhuma Pride yesterday, but her tracks were in this general vicinity. So I wonder if there's not something moving around. We're definitely going to try and see if we can't investigate what that bushbuck or nyala is alarm calling at. It sounded more like bushbuck to me. The bushbuck has a slightly sort of higher pitched and much softer call than what you see from the nyala, just because of their size. Right. Let's go and check what goes on, and while we do that, let's go see if Jamie has found Shadow yet, or if she's still looking for her.
An alarm call would certainly help, because we are indeed still looking for Shadow. I've taken the 2-track that runs along the power lines for maintenance, and it runs right next to the drainage line, but no luck there, and now I've got to the point where I'm sort of stuck. Luckily, I think I'm about to hit a road. I think I found the way out of here. Yep, I have. And judging by the tire tracks, I'm not the first person to have used the sneaky exit route. Okay. One more loop. There's one road that I haven't checked. This isn't a road. Hold on a minute, this isn't a road. This is a problem. It's not a road, but a problem. Okay, well, let's go see where these tire tracks lead. Not out is the obvious answer. Road, where are you? I see the open area that I want to get onto, but how do I get there? Probably not through there. Okay. It's alright, I've been in worse positions before. We'll figure this one out. And who knows, we might just bump into shadow as we do. I'm so sorry. That was really unexpected. I didn't expect the tree to go that way at all. It did. It did. Did you see that? It did. It did just jump out of nowhere. Maybe a bit of camouflage will help us. I'm glad that wasn't a thorn tree. Not as glad as Fergus is, that is correct. Oh, the things we do for love of the bush. Indiana James, you want to know if I got all the grass seeds out of my socks on that note? I didn't actually try. I will at some point. I just haven't quite got around to it yet. Last night I was finishing up some last minute packing and trying to figure out how on earth I'm going to fit the rest of my stuff into a suitcase. So unfortunately the socks... This isn't going to work either. Right, what tree shall I drive Fergus into now, everybody? Alright, now Louise would like to know if human beings or washing machines are better at removing socks. No. Well, I mean, the washing machines are great at removing socks. I hardly have any left. I mean, seeds from socks. Removing socks from my feet, yes. Seeds from socks, humans are better at removing seeds from socks. Those seeds like to stay exactly where they are, and putting your socks in a washing machine does not work. What does work quite well, I've discovered, is fire. Yes, Fergus is fire. No, if you are in my position where you can't afford to lose any more socks because the rest of them have disappeared or are very lonely, then duct tape works quite well as well. Pat the duct tape along it. Right, okay, so we've gone to the left, we've gone to the right. Let's go back where we came from. It's the only way out of here. The only way. I'm so sorry, Fergus. Apparently lots of you sending through screenshots of our surprise tree. Oh gosh, it's the broken heart that I'm currently suffering. The fact that there goes another tree for Fergus. Ow, leave me alone, tree. Leave me alone, yes. It's the broken heart from a lack of a shadow sighting. It really is quite devastating. It's okay. We'll try again. And keep trying. I've only got 6 more drives. Donna, the first thing I would like to see in the Mara, you mean apart from Brent? Black rhino. I'm really excited about seeing black rhino. I have not seen a black rhino in quite a long time. The last time was when I went to go and visit my friend in an undisclosed location at an undisclosed time, and I got to go and walk him, this particular black rhino, and he was so very friendly, which is unusual. This is not something you often hear about a black rhino. I'm looking forward to seeing black rhino. I'm looking forward to seeing secretary birds, and I really want to see these melanistic bush babies. Every time I speak to Brent on the phone in the evenings, he goes, "Oh, there's the bush baby." Apparently they're jet black. And then Rebecca sent me a message to say that one of them had jumped right next to her and that she felt as though I'd sent it to greet her. And she arrived in the Mara. So those are the things I'm looking forward to. I imagine after the long journey I might also be looking forward to a shower and bed, but that we'll see how things go. I'm looking forward to seeing our vehicles. It's going to be so different. Not that I don't love you, Wendy. You are wonderful. Please don't break down. Alright, all the way back along the power lines. Okay, my leopard search has been fruitless. I wonder whether James's lion has lifted its head.
He has lifted his head. He's looking around the place, sniffing the wind, showing us his... I mean, that picture makes him look like he's got quite evil eyes, doesn't it? But when you zoom out from his face, it looks like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. Which of course it never will, because he's unlikely to eat butter. Oh, there is a wind coming up from the southeast, and I think that every so often he's picking something up, either sound or smell. Something very timeless about him, I must say. Although he's a young fellow, probably just over 6 years, he's got something timeless about him. MJ, a very good, nice question about parasites and lions and whether there are any creatures that help them stay free of parasites, and the answer, I'm afraid, is no, I don't think there are. I mean, his own body will be in a constant state of war with parasites and parasitoids internally, and externally, I mean, he does get ticks and mites and things, but other than his brothers and pride mates who might from time to time engage in a bit of allo grooming, he's really it's up to him to try and fend off the parasites. I just got a bit distracted there, Seb. If you look down south, you can see all of the vultures are now coming up off the carcass out of Mala Mala. You see that? That is phenomenal. If you saw that and you just come down here, you might think to yourself, there's definitely death. But if you watch them carefully, you can see actually that they're going upwards. They're coming off whatever they've been eating, and whatever it is now finished. That's just beautiful. Isn't that great? Let's see how long that thermal lasts. They'll get to the top of it, and then they'll fly off, probably in this direction with the wind. They are coming this way with the wind. The lion has not seen them yet. I'm pretty sure he'll pick them up as they come over there. That is just fantastic. So they're making use of the wind and the thermal. I don't think it's a very strong thermal. None of them are sort of speeding up at a great rate. Ah, wow. Floating, floating, floating up into the great blue yonder. I think the wind's coming from me, Lou, because I'm looking upwards, I'm afraid. Sorry about the wind noise, everybody. Oh, that's very special. Hello, pack of animals. There, he suddenly picked up vultures and smell of something. A pack of animals, you're wondering if the term raptor means carnivorous bird. You know what, I don't actually know what its origin is. I don't know what the etymology of the word raptor is. We use it to refer to birds of prey, all birds of prey, and they are all carnivorous, yes. So it's a certain order. It's not even an order. It's a number of families of birds that fit into what we would term raptor, or loosely term raptor, including the falcons and hawks, goshawks, harriers, eagles, vultures, and snake eagles. That was just tremendous, actually. Justin, at one stage of my life I drove a fellow who was a big cat trainer, and he said to me that he thought lions were the most stupid animals he'd ever come across. So when you ask me what do I think is going through his mind right now, my temptation is to give you a flippant answer, and that is absolutely nothing. I don't believe that that's necessarily true, that lions are gormless. They're as bright as they have to be for the lives that they live. I think there are two things going through his mind. He's watching the vultures and thinking to himself, is there meat there? And then probably realizing and remembering that that's where he's just had his last meal, so it's highly unlikely. He will also note, oh, hello. I would have thought he would have noted that the vultures were not going down, that they were coming up. They are able to do that. He's definitely watching the sky, though. He's watching the vultures. And the second thing that he's thinking, obviously, is where's more food? Chaps, this is major action for a lion sighting this time of the day. Can you believe it? In Canadian Emily, you were wondering if they'd see the vultures and go to investigate. Absolutely they do. That's half the way they find their food. And a male lion, contrary to popular belief and what the Lion King would have you believe, is the greatest scavenger out here. Far greater than any hyena. And even if they're not scavenging from other predators, they'll scavenge from other lions. Now I think he's picked up that those vultures that where I'm pointing there, we won't try and show them to you while we're driving, but they're coming up off a different part of the plains than the buffalo kill vultures that have just come up. Hello fellow, where are you going? Shall I try and get in front of him, Sib? It's gorgeous, hey? Is that alright? That's just stunning. See what I was saying about his colour? Excuse me. Suzanne, you say where's the rest of his coalition? I'm afraid I don't know. Got a nice game path that we can drive along through here. I think that some of them are on Mala Mala down to the south. Let's hold on tight here. You can still see him there. It's just quite thick. Sorry. There he goes. Look at him floating through there. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, that's great. Okay, let's move up. Watch your head there, Seb. You can still see him. Now, I believe that Tristan has managed to find something that he would like to eat several months ago. I suspect it's a marula. I have no idea. Well, let's go and find out.
Well, I'm not sure, James. Several months ago it would have had more than one to choose from. There would have been very many buffalo that it could have eaten. So this is one that was part of the drought victims. And it's really interesting to look at these skulls and these sort of bones from the drought period, because you can tell a lot about what happened at that stage. This particular buffalo is probably one of the bigger buffalo that I've seen, and skull-wise that I've seen. The horns are massive and its head is also huge. So if we have a look here, I'm going to just turn it onto its side so you can just see if it was up straight. There we go. That's how widespread those horns are. Those horns are easily over a meter. It's a massive individual. And this particular buffalo, if you came across the skull and you didn't know this area at all, you would wonder why it died. It doesn't have any sort of signs of being old. It's actually quite a young animal. And if we look at the teeth itself, look at how healthy these teeth are. That's where the root would have been. These teeth are all long and in very, very, very good condition. So other than the fact that there was a drought, you would have had to have thought that this buffalo would have been killed by lions, because it is a young individual that should have been in the prime of its life. But we know that it hasn't been fed on by too many scavengers, because look at the plate of the sort of roof of the mouth. Anything that gets eaten by lions or hyenas extensively means that this section here gets broken very quickly. You often find that this bone is quite sort of pliable and it ends up being broken. The nose area has been chewed on a little bit, and that would have been, once it died, there would have been something that would have come through and eaten it. But interestingly enough, I even found some of the teeth from the front of the jaw that are sticking out. Now you can see how sharp these teeth are on the edge, and if I actually run my finger over them, it feels very, very sharp. And those are the teeth that they use to cut the grass. So those are the ones that will cut the sort of tips of the grass off, and then it goes back into the mouth where it starts to then get ground down. So this is one of the incisors, and these are not things that you find very often out in the bush. Generally these are kind of spread out all over the place, so it's quite a cool thing to see. But just the sheer size of this particular buffalo is astounding. The other thing I want to show you is just the size of the eye on a buffalo. So you see the sort of orbit area here. If I push my fist there, you can see that that eye is massive. So it tells you very, very quickly that the buffalo relies quite heavily on its eyesight. So you can see the massive, 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 massive eyes that will help for it to be able to detect predators by using its eyesight itself. So really, really cool to see. And we're going to leave this obviously here because it's part of the bush, and it'll still provide housing for insects, which we can have a look at over here. Ooh, Justin, you want to know how heavy the skull would be? Sure, Justin, I don't know. I would say it probably weighs, I would say, maybe 20 pounds, somewhere around there. Maybe between 15 and 20 pounds is what I would say. Maybe a little bit heavier. It is quite a heavy object. It's difficult to pick up because it's awkward, so it's hard to sort of judge the weight of it, but I would say around 20 pounds. It definitely has got a very thick area here, which is dense and heavy. This is all to protect the brain when these males are fighting. And the reason why I was saying it's also a young animal, besides the teeth, is we can see this boss hasn't fully developed. Look underneath here, you can see how thin this layer is. On really old buffalo, this gets very thick and almost worn. This has still got a lot of ridges on it, so this would indicate a much younger animal. Once they get older, this all wears down and becomes almost smooth and polished, so definitely not an old animal. But like I was saying, it also will show you that there is still needed to be in the bush for varying reasons, and that's mostly because of the insects that are going to now feed off this thick keratin sheath that we see here. So these are those horn-boring moths that are starting to take place now. There's only a few of them. It's not quite like what we see of the skull in the tent that is absolutely covered, but in time it will eventually get that way. You'll find a situation in time where these will just cover this whole horn, and eventually all this dark black will disappear and we'll only see the white of the horns itself. Now I see there's a spider busy running across here as well. You see it going? So like I was saying, it's a multitude of different species are going to end up living in this area. Now the spider is busy hiding in that crevice over there, so you can see it's minute, but this is going to be a whole ecosystem after a while. Isn't that amazing? Very, very cool. There we go, there's our spider disappearing. Now yesterday, the reason why I actually came past here is because yesterday the lion cubs were lying here, so it gives you an idea of how big those lion cubs are. One lion cub was lying and its body was sort of the length of these horns, and so you can imagine if the lion was on its back legs how tall those cubs are already. Right, we're going to leave the scene of massacre and death, and we're going to cross it back to James with his male lion and see where he's off to. Maybe his male lion has also found its own scene of massacre and death that it's going towards.
No, my lion hasn't seemed to have found any massacre or death just yet. He was in this block, and we came through it via a path that was different from his, taking a chance, hoping that he would pop out around here, but we didn't want to try and follow him through the thick stuff that he was going. And, well, he hasn't arrived just yet. It is entirely possible that he has gone to sleep in the middle of that block, which is a little irritating to say the least. There is no alarm calling, no distress being indicated by any bird or other species. There is a wildebeest over there, which we can look at while I scan the fringes of the woodland here for the emerging tawny mane of our big male lion. But I do not see him anywhere. I think he walked in there, and as soon as he lost sight of us, thought, ha 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 ha, and lay down and went to sleep. So I'm sorry about that. Anyway, there's the wildebeest looking deeply undistressed by life. So he doesn't think there's a male lion coming this way. And as you can see, the Mara is not the only place with great swathes of clearing around. Here we are in clearings with the wildebeest, and it's the one animal that for love nor money Brent will be unable to find at the moment. You can find every other kind of predator that there might be on planet Earth, but no wildebeest at the moment. They will be coming up from the south fairly soon into the Mara. This lion, I'm afraid, has gone, as they say in game drive language, a lullapancy. He's gone sleep down. There he is. He came out basically where we came out, Seb. We just want to be slightly the other side of the light, correct, Seb? Is that fine? Or there? Come, boy, come. Now, White Lady Irwin, you want to know if a lion would scavenge another lion's food? Absolutely, and they do all the time. That is what a male lion is doing when he takes from his females. That is scavenging. There are no two ways about it. There's no finer way or no fine way to put that. The male lion, when his female, when his pride has killed, he is scavenging from them. Oh, that's wonderful. That's what you want to see. Male lion coming towards you. It is very beautiful, Louise. That is correct. Especially across grassland like this. Smelling the air all the time still. Isn't that special? Now, as you said that, driving up to leopards, that's your name, he swung off to the other side. You said, would he take that wildebeest on alone? He would. I just don't think in these conditions he would. I think you'll find that these conditions are completely suboptimal for a male lion wanting to hunt something, and he therefore would not be doing a great deal of hunting on his own. It's too bright. That wildebeest will run away from him. What a gorgeous, gorgeous shot of a lion. He's heading due south to where his kill was. He can definitely smell it. Unless, you know what, there were 2 male lions on that kill apparently, unless he wasn't one of them. And maybe only now has he picked up on the scent of the kill. Now, he's not far from the boundary, so Seb, when you're ready, I'm going to move. He's just heading, the wildebeest now starting to alarm call at him. Okay, let's go. He's got, there are the vultures in the tree. He's got one more road to cross after this one. We'll try and do a repeat performance. No, we can't. I'm afraid this is as far as we can go, Seb. So he's now crossing the boundary into Mala. Let me get my bonce out of the way. There are some Impala. I'll just tell you about them while you look at the lion. There are some Impala to the south there now looking at him. There are some vultures which we'll show you shortly. He's now in Mala. Sometimes it does pay off to sit with a flat cat, quite often not, but today it did. Dustin, difficult to say. I mean, I have read these statistics, but I'm not sure that I remember exactly what it was. You say compared to the human being, how strong is a lion's nose? I don't know about lions specifically. A hyena apparently can smell about 200 times more effectively than we can. Now, what that actually means, I'm not sure. But I think it probably means the distance from which they will smell something. So they are that much more effective. And I mean, certainly for a leopard, I've watched Impala the leopard, and there the vultures are. I've watched Impala the leopard track a zebra's carcass about 4 kilometers. He suddenly picked it up on the wind, he turned and he ran 4 kilometers to the north, and we didn't know what he was doing. And eventually he found the zebra carcass. We ran in a straight line towards it. Right, well that was gorgeous. Shall I just back up slightly for you? There are the vultures, the last of them, the lazy ones. And this will be our last view of Nhenha the warrior. Alright everybody, we're going to begin the long trek back towards Djuma. You know, long treks, nothing quite like the long treks of the Mara that we're about to start having. And while we do that, I believe that Jamie has already made that long trek, and she would like to tell you how that long trek has gone.
That long trek, whatever, has gone marvelously. I'm back on Djuma once again. The way that my day is going, I was trying to show you some kudu, but they walked off as James sent you across to me. And that, I think, says it all, really, about this morning. Although Fergus pointed out that the way that his day is going, he's lucky he didn't fall off the car. So, you know, swings and roundabouts. We all have something to be thankful for. James, of course, will have to be thankful if there's still food left by the time he gets back from Cheetah Plains. We'll have to put some aside for James and Sebastian in case it all vanishes. I'm going to try and find you these kudu again, because there was actually a really sweet little one with them. But they appear to have wandered off. I'm sorry about Shadow, everybody. Trust me, I really am. I was really hoping to see her. They say the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I hoped that today might be different. You never know, this afternoon might be. Thanks, Ferg. Fergus says there's a thin line between madness and genius. He didn't say which line I fall under, or which side of the line I fall on, but... So we just walk the line. Yes, let's walk the line. I've never been very good at towing the line, Fergus. Not at all. Alright, Kudu. You're going to vanish as well, aren't you? You're just going to be invisible. It's half the fun of a live safari. If it worked out in our favor every time, it wouldn't be fun. Mama Perks, yes, animals do get hiccups. I have seen animals with hiccups. I've seen lions with hiccups. I have seen... Elephants don't get hiccups, interestingly enough, as far as I know. But I've seen lions with hiccups. I have seen leopards with hiccups. It's actually quite sweet. I also once saw a hyena with hiccups as well, a hyena cub, sitting there going... It was very sweet. Very, very sweet. They also snore every now and again. Lions, I've often heard lions snoring. I've heard leopards snoring as well. The most fun we have is when we get hiccups and try and talk through a really bad session of hiccups. We manage it though, somehow. The other fun time is when the director gets hiccups as well. Or the cameraman. That's when we frighten cameramen, Ferg.
You always frighten cameramen.
I know I always frighten cameramen. You never know when I'm going to surprise you with a tree. I'm still so sorry about that. I feel terribly guilty. That was not ideal. Alright, everybody. We'll try again this afternoon for Shadow, I think. Depends how, because I think Fergus is stuck with me again this afternoon, unless he runs away. Unless he just disappears and never returns ever again. Oh, there's an elephant. Well, that's a nice surprise. Well, we'll finish off our sunrise safari with something big. No, please don't run away. Oh boy. It's okay. Today's really not my day. He's all stiff-tailed and head up. It's alright, mister. What's got you so flighty? We're far away from you. Shame, I interrupted him mid-bite. Oh, Bjorn, deep question for a last-minute one on the sunrise safari. Bjorn wants to know, what is an elephant's concept of beauty, or what do we think it is? I think an elephant's concept of beauty is a nice slushy mud puddle, a fresh green-looking patch of grass, and of course a voluptuous female elephant, in the case of the males. And you see the stiff tail, still not entirely comfortable with us. What do you think is beautiful, boy? Oh, I know, marula fruit. A fruiting marula tree is what an elephant might find beautiful. I think it's certainly safe to say, though, that elephant males like the big ladies. Huh? Right. And finishing off on the way that my morning has continued, he's now defecating. It's time to finish the sunrise safari right here and right now. Thank you, Fergus, for your wonderful camera work. I'm really sorry that I dumped you in a tree. And thank you to Lou. Lou, who's your D2 this morning? I didn't even find out. Megan's back from leave. So thank you to Lou and thank you to Megan. Thank you to all of you for your senses of humor, for keeping us entertained, and for having endless patience when it comes to Shadow and her missing cub. We will try again this afternoon on the Sunset Safari. Bye-bye, everybody.